All right, welcome back, guys. This is now episode 4, I believe, Completely Pointless Podcast. Today, you got your
Yes,
regulars
sir.
with me. You got Jeremy as well as.
Nick.
And Brandon.
Hell
There he
yeah,
is.
we have successfully done a whole month of podcasts. How does that make y'all feel?
Pretty good. I'm really waiting for number 5.
Why is that like you're cut off for making all the social media accounts and stuff?
Yeah, pretty much. That's whenever I'm gonna start actually like spreading the word, dog.
Yeah, so we actually have a pretty good backlog.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
something for people to watch, listen to. Yeah, both.
Yeah, all in all, I think it's been going pretty good. I do wish we had um, just more feedback, I guess, is the best option because I know I showed it to both of my roommates and they're like, "Oh, this is great," and then they don't like give any feedback for it. I want someone to be mean. I want someone to criticize me.
I showed my mom, and she gave a good amount of feedback.
Oh, well, your
But I
mom?
mean,
Gross. No, I'm just
we're
kidding.
really early into this, so I'm kind of giving us more time to feel it out.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
I showed one of my coworkers, and his feedback was, "I fuck with it."
Yeah,
yeah,
most
that's
of the responses I got was it's pretty good. Yeah.
that's the only
So,
feedback we need. If everybody fucks with it, that's it. Gold,
Yeah,
gold,
yes,
baby.
sir.
we're good to go.
I'm just excited for the comments we'll get on like the Twitter posts and shit, where people are just hating on it.
Can't wait to get canceled. That's
Oh
that's
yeah,
my
dude.
that's my goal in life is to get canceled off of the internet.
I mean, I've listened to some pretty egregious podcasts on Spotify. I don't think
Right,
we're in that realm.
right. What? So, I guess kind of related, getting into like cancel culture. Um, how? So, I feel like the people that get canceled, like they, they have the cancel mob come after them. They're never the people that should actually be canceled. They're the people that
Facts.
maybe said something, not great in their past, but since then they've become a better person or they're just generally a better person and it was taken out of context. And then they get canceled, where then you have whole podcasts that are just dedicated to like, being a Nazi. And those are fine. So like I just don't
But
get the cancel culture thing in general for the most part.
Oh, I
yeah, I don't
never
either.
have.
I feel like it's a wasted effort for the most part. It's like there are way bigger problems in the world than what somebody feels. What some random dude's opinion on a podcast or a YouTube video or something.
Yeah, but at what point does it stop becoming a random person and start becoming someone that, actually has sway? Like with the whole PewDiePie's gone through multiple things, some worse than others, some not really that important at all. But he does have a huge audience and a lot of sway in it. So is that something that he should be held responsible for, I guess?
I mean, are you saying like be responsible for like? I mean, yeah, to a degree. I mean, what PewDiePie did was pretty egregious in my opinion. I mean, that was like you straight up just let it slip, dude. Like
Yeah.
that,
Well, not even that one.
Yeah.
Do you remember? So he let the N word slip on one of them. But then do you remember the stream where he paid someone on Fiverr? Fiverr? Yeah, Fiverr
Yeah.
Yeah.
to hold up a sign. What did it say? I think it said "Kill all Jews" is what it said. It was just like
Wow.
two
Just
dudes from Ethiopia or something that didn't speak English. They just wrote it on a sign and held it up on his like live stream or something
Why?
because he paid them to.
No, like why did he pay them to? Did you think it was gonna be funny? Because I mean, like, I get trying to be edgy, but
I don't. I saw like some.
like that's just not funny. In my
Yeah, I
opinion,
saw.
that's
I
just not
saw.
that's just not funny.
Yeah, it's really
yeah.
not. That's just like, well, we'll get into dark humor in a second, but kind of back on the PewDiePie thing. Um, I think he like interviewed at some point. And he was like, "Yeah, I just put the request in there as a joke. I didn't expect anyone to actually do it."
Yeah, but
And
you put it
then,
out, dude. You're PewDiePie.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
recognize who you are. I mean,
Well, I mean, I don't think he was like. I think he just
I
made
don't
like a
think there was any
Fiverr
malicious
account
intent.
and just made a little like $5 request for somebody to dance and hold up a sign. But like, it's stuff like that. Like, yeah, he probably didn't intend for it to be, he didn't actually mean that. He didn't intend for it to be mean or racist towards anybody, but since he has such a huge audience and he did do that, so like there's parts of cancel culture that I think are the moral behind them are right, but the way they go about it is not.
Well, because they go after, they're not there to make you atone for your actions or whatever they think they're doing. They're there to go after your livelihood. Like, they're not trying to make you think, "Oh, I shouldn't have done that." They're trying to make sure that you never do anything again.
Yeah.
Like,
Or it's basically like getting rid of you. It's censorship, essentially. They're just trying to censor you so they don't have to see it, or it doesn't, other people don't have to see it, so that that mindset doesn't really spread, essentially.
Yeah.
and
And that's
Which
definitely
is
not
like,
good.
no, and that's how I feel. It's kind of like, even if you disagree with somebody, disagree and move on with your life. Don't sit here and try and like inject yourself into the situation and get them completely removed. I mean, unless they're doing something completely egregious, which is just, which I mean, it's one of those things. 'Cause
Yeah.
it's like, where how do you
Where do you draw the
separate?
line at?
Right, yeah. Where do you draw that line? But you can tell whenever somebody has malicious intent or not, and that's where I think it comes to. Like, does this person have malicious intent with their content? Are they out here trying to sway people in a certain way that's negative for everybody else? And I guess it's up for you to decide. But I do think everybody should be able to speak their mind, in my personal opinion.
Yeah. And it's definitely there's just a part of me that, like, for again going back to PewDiePie, his audience is so huge that I do think he has a responsibility to, make sure he's putting out the right image or putting out the right morals about it, I guess. And
Totally
for the
agree.
most part, he does. For most of his
Yeah.
content is, positive, good stuff. But then you have people like the Paul brothers, who are just trash human beings, and have a freaking huge following, and just put absolute garbage out into the world. And they get quote unquote canceled like every 6 months, it feels like, and they're fine. Like, it doesn't affect them in the slightest.
Well, it's kind of like, and I agree. You should be held. You should, be accountable for your actions and stuff like that. But the vast majority of these instances are like, the very minority of these people's content. Not the Paul brothers so much, because they do have a lot of negative content and very egregious things they've done and said. But like PewDiePie, for instance, I mean, he's a really nice guy. Supports charities a lot. Supports his fan base a lot, and provides a lot of really, quality content. That's funny in my. I really think he's pretty funny.
Yeah,
A little awkward, but funny.
yeah,
And he has. It's. I think these few instances where they mess up big. It's like these really big slip ups, which I don't think there's any excuse for it. But it's kind of one of those things where it's like, okay, that was wrong, and we want you to be aware that that was wrong, and we are totally not with that. But I mean, I don't think you should outright cancel somebody for like one or two instances of something, unless they straight up harm someone, like, are abusive to someone, or
yeah,
attack, like, they're being malicious about it.
yeah,
and then like 90% of them, it's not like we're going to get these terrible people fucking canceled on the internet. It's,
No.
hey, there's this really good guy and he said one off-color comment one or two times. Let's cancel him. He's too good of a guy to be saying shit like that. So it's like, it's that weird middle ground of, well, these guys are always terrible, so like, yeah, there's always going to be somebody upset about them. But then it's, hey, here's this really good guy who, yeah, he fucked up, but don't go after his livelihood. Like,
I think. Go ahead. Go ahead.
like that. I think that's what pisses me off the most about cancel culture is they're not satisfied until either they crush the person's spirits or they crush the person's following or anything like that. They're not satisfied. They want to follow through with it until they're just a shell of what they used to be. And that is fucked up.
Yeah, there's definitely like a sense of mob mentality around a lot of it.
Well, to play devil's advocate, I mean, what if that person did something really, really bad, like they
Yeah.
said, or did something that was just actually terrible, and
See,
then
that's
they don't get shut down.
that's
It's like,
where
where do
I
you
like.
it's where do you draw that line?
Yeah, that's where I go back and forth on it because I do think that especially once you start getting a following, that you should be held responsible for your actions, but the punishment should fit the crime, right? Like
There are
if you,
levels to it.
yeah, like if you let one inappropriate word slip, again it all depends on the context, why you're using it, if you're actually using it, in a racist way and all this stuff. So it's never just a black and white scenario of yes, they should be canceled for this. But I also think that there's, if someone does something bad, you should be like, hey, this is not okay. Don't do that, so that they can learn from it. Um, I have written in my notes. I just want to bring this quote up as the only reason I started this topic. From the almighty Parthenax in Skyrim. He has the quote. It's the one quote everyone knows from him. What is it? It's what is better, to be born good or to overcome one's evil nature through great effort? Which I think speaks a lot to the cancel culture because yeah, some people are just trash human beings and they probably should be canceled, but others you just need to let them know so that they can overcome it.
Well, there are levels to it, right? Like like say with the PewDiePie situation, there are guidelines to Twitch and YouTube and streaming and such. So say, they do this one thing, there's something that should happen. There should be a repercussion to that for sure. Like they get banned, for a week or a month or whatever. There should be something to where they lose income for a short while or, lose the ability to use the platform for a little while, but not forever. Right. And once they serve that time, it's kind of like, going to jail or what have you. There are repercussions to certain actions in real life too, and not just online.
Yeah.
So online we have just different repercussions to it. And I think we should really like set standards for that kind of thing instead of just canceling somebody outright.
Yeah.
Shut them down for a bit, let them know, hey, you messed up. Now you're going to go without this source of income for a bit, and you can come back, but just know that was really messed up. You can't do that. Here's your repercussion.
Yeah. Well, but
Now, if somebody does something like really, really bad and repetitively does it, remove them all entirely. In my opinion, like it's the repetition of it for me. It's like if they do something like once or twice, it's like okay, that wasn't cool. Let's here's your warning. Now do it again, and it'll be
you're
worse.
fucked. Yeah. Well, kind of going back to like you say, there should be like some kind of guideline to it. I mean, that's basically what the TOS of all those platforms is for, though. So
yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like there are terms of services, so the people who are viewing it and watching it and everything like that need to, I think, in my opinion, stay out of it. Like that's why there are guidelines, terms of service, stuff like that.
yeah, you need like a third party, an unbiased party to come in and look at it.
Yeah, but that's really hard nowadays to have an unbiased party because then that puts them at liability for the backlash of their decision.
Yeah. Well, and you also
But-
get kind of like with the Paul brothers, whenever anybody goes after either Jake or Logan Paul, their audience just rips them to shreds, like harassing them. I've saw a couple of instances where they DOS people. Like it's so hard to actually hold some people responsible because they have a whole group behind them that will defend all of their actions.
Yeah. And I mean, if it's kind of democracy, though. I mean, if you have the majority of people backing you, I mean, even if you're wrong, I mean, that's kind of how it works.
But
which
what
is
if the
not
majority
right,
of those people are children?
Well, yeah, that's that's a whole other issue. That is a whole other issue, which I feel like is probably the root of the problem. But
Yeah, man. Well, that's
there's also the problem of when part of cancel culture gets put in power on platforms like that is now there's somebody that can abuse that power. So they can be like, oh, they said one thing I didn't like. They're just done.
Yeah. Well, like
I don't remember.
That one Twitch mod or Twitch
Yeah.
person.
Yeah,
I don't know what position they were in, but
the
they were
deer
all
one.
on stream bragging about how much power they have, and because they're part of the Alphabet Gang.
Oh,
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of
And
like
so there's
y'all seen the whole Pokimane and JDCon? What's his name? I'm gonna piss someone off because I don't remember his name.
Black streamer, right? The one
Yeah,
I can't remember his damn name, but I know who you're
something
talking
with a
about. Yeah,
J.
he sent a bunch of his viewers to go over there and
Yeah,
mess with her, right?
to like
Just as a
hate
joke.
raider. Yeah, but I
It didn't.
mean,
It did not like they. I feel like personally, if you're a Twitch streamer and you get rated in the community that raised you as toxic, I mean, you're on Twitch, bro. Like people have the ability to do that, and you should be prepared for that. In my opinion,
I mean, yeah, but
I don't think it was
it's not
right. But
something
have a little
that.
bit tougher skin,
Yeah,
personally.
well, I mean, from all the things I've seen from it from her, it doesn't. She's like, yeah, this is just annoying, and it's not right. And while I can handle this, there are smaller streamers that the same thing is happening to them. You know, like people with
Ah,
like 20 streamers that get rated by a group of 200 that just start, calling them sluts and bitches and telling them to kill themselves and doing all this stuff. So at some point, it just is harassment. So
well, Summit 1G had a really good take on that. I feel like, and I really agreed with it. He's like, don't raid people without letting them know or asking them first.
yeah, yeah. I guess I don't really know a
Right.
whole lot about the Twitch ecosystem because I've never actually streamed or anything like that. Um,
I just follow certain streamers that I agree a lot with, and I really
yeah,
like Summit. He gets pissed and like flies off the handle sometimes, but he's never racist, he's never sexist, he's never like shitty towards people. So I really like watching him a lot.
yeah. Well, there's basically only like two streamers that I watch. Doug, which he's pretty popular. He's like has 4 or 5 thousand watch every time. He just does a bunch of modding, like challenges on like GTA and all these things. But then another guy, his name is John Smith, which is just the definition of a witness protection name. Uh, but his
Yeah.
whole thing in his streams, and he's pretty small, is he just is positive vibes. That's it. No one's allowed to be negative. I mean, you're allowed, but it's not recommended. Don't like harass people. Just be nice to everybody. Have a good time. Hang out and chill. And so it's things like that I'm like, yeah, why can't we all just be nice and chill and
Yeah,
have
that's fair.
a good time,
That's why I tell a lot of people. It's like y'all need to just take a step back and chill. Like
Mhm.
whatever you're saying or wanting to say, like you don't have to.
yeah.
Like sometimes it's better to just be silent, and which I'm having to learn a lot about because I noticed I tend to talk over people and get excited, and I want to open my mouth and get it out. But sometimes it's better to just be quiet and not share your opinion because it is sharing your opinion worth the possible backlash or possible offense you may give somebody, and then they get all upset about it, and that you have to deal with that kind of deal, unless you just don't care and just will be like, yeah, whatever, I don't care that you're bothered by that. But I'm not that type of person, so.
Yeah. Well, especially when it comes to, I do that a lot where I just kind of talk over people, but it's never with anything like important. But I also
Same.
am just a spineless coward that if somebody is like saying something to me, which, living in Texas, working in construction, there are a lot of big burly men with their big, hard
Yeah.
opinions about things. And so they'll start telling me something about how, the liberals are ruining California. And the whole time I'm just like, yeah, man, fuck it, screw them liberals, hell, fuck those guys. Even if I don't like fully agree with it, I'm just like,
I do the same thing. Yeah, you just play along so you don't have to deal with the conversation
yeah, you
like
don't want to
going
have to argue
further.
with them.
Yeah, yeah, and that's kind of a something that's it was like a philosophical thing that I was watching, and they were like saying that the true idiot is someone who will argue with someone who's ignorant, right? And it's there's some truth to that,
Yeah,
right? If somebody's just spouting nonsense about something that you're like, okay, this is obviously just their opinion from their perspective, which isn't very valid.
yeah, nothing you say is gonna change their mind.
Exactly. If they're
Yeah.
too stubborn to even think otherwise or even hear your side of the argument, it's kind of like don't even have the conversation because it's not worth your time.
Yeah. But I feel like that kind of mindset is what leads to a lot of people just believing absolute, like, stupid shit. Like, the world is flat. It's because no one wants to
Well, there's-
argue with them that, like, no? Idiot?
Well, there's kind of a difference, right? For me, it's like understand your own point of view and what you think, and have your own information that you've gathered and what you know, and don't just believe everything everyone says, right? You can go along with it if you just don't want to have the conversation with them, but
Yeah.
it's kind of not worth it if they're just going to be stubborn and annoying about it.
I mean, you know what this all goes back to?
Huh.
People are idiots from
Uh,
the bottom to the top.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Man, but I feel like just a lot of people in general, and I do it too. I'm not gonna say I don't do it, but when you get into arguments, there's just something about it that even if someone just disagreeing with you, there's like a gut feeling to be like, no, fuck you, I'm right. Like it's natural almost to not try to discuss the argument, but to just start yelling at each other.
Yeah, you kind of just get frustrated or
Because I know
Yeah, I
I'm
can.
pretty bad a lot of times about someone will say something and I'm like, no, fucking idiot, why would you think that? Whereas you should be like, okay,
explain
well,
further.
yeah, like
or
why,
here's my side.
yeah, why do you
Well,
think
why
that?
do you
What's
think
going
that?
on?
Yeah.
Explain to me your thought process here so that I can prove to you that you're wrong.
Yeah.
Well, we live in such a fast-paced society anymore. We don't really have time to do that,
Yeah. Yeah, well,
which is
everybody's just
a whole
changing
other
their
thing.
minds all the time. Well, even
Mhm.
I get really swayed a lot when it comes to like video games. Like I'll hear from a lot of people that this video game that just came out is garbage, but then I'll see some reviews that are like, actually, it's pretty good if you don't just throw your monkey brain at it and actually think about the underlying story it has. So then I push up my glasses and go, yes, this is a very, very deep, deep game that just not everyone understands. That's why they think it's bad.
Well, that kind of goes to there are some people who don't care about like the story or their main thing that they like is the gameplay. It's all preference. But I understand that. Yeah, like there's a lot of games that I'll play and I'm just like, man, I hate this game. And then I'll watch a review on it and they're like, this game's awesome. I love every bit of it. And then I'll go back and I'll play it with that mindset.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, this game is actually pretty cool. You just got to look at it from a different perspective. It's got to, play it a different way or, get out of your comfort zone a bit and
Yeah.
you can experience some pretty cool things sometimes.
Like I think most things can be enjoyed if you understand what they are. The best
Mhm.
example being bad movies. Bad movies
Yeah.
are great if you go in with the expectation that they are bad. And
They really are, yeah.
And you want to laugh at them and make fun of all the stupid shit in it, then it's just a great
Yeah.
experience all around.
Ooh,
Jeremy,
go
you
ahead,
know
Brandon.
you know the first movie that comes to my mind when you say
Hercules
that.
in New York.
Abso-fucking-lutely.
I haven't even
Money.
heard of that movie.
I
It
don't.
is Arnold
Hercules need no
Schwarzenegger's
money.
first movie.
Mm-hmm.
What's it called?
Hercules in New York.
Oh my god, of course it would be, because that was his only like thing he had going
he
for
was
him at
buff.
the time was he was a bodybuilder.
Yep.
And that movie's so good, but it's
Yeah,
so
the
bad.
fucking rebar lightning
Yeah.
bolts.
Oh my
And
god.
just the fact that they're trying to pass Arnold Schwarzenegger off as Greek when
Yeah.
with his super thick Austrian accent. It's Austrian, right?
It was like
Yeah.
like his accent is still bad now, but in that movie it was like,
he was like
how do
fresh
you-
off the boat.
how do you communicate in English at all?
It was bad, and no hate against the guy. He's just not a very good actor.
Oh no.
Yeah, he's
not at all.
It's not really
I really want.
better than me, but
That's true. Better than anything I could do, but
yeah.
I've always wanted to, and this is how we started, or this is how we found Hercules in New York. Is I want to just watch all of Arnold Schwarzenegger's movie in like order of release from like
Oh, that's
beginning
pretty
to
cool.
end, just because I want to see if he actually gets better or if it's
I think
just
so.
more trash, you know?
His English definitely got better, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's true.
But I'm not a big movie guy personally, so it's kind of hard for me to get into watching terrible movies because I don't like movies really that much, anyways. Like it has to be like I have to be in the mood for it, I guess. Like I have to be really chilled out and like not wanting to do anything else.
Yeah.
And in a mood to watch a movie, because otherwise I just get into it and I'm sitting there. I'm like, I'm bored. I want to do something
Yeah.
that I can interact with.
Well,
Yeah.
what are some movies that you've watched recently that you've enjoyed, if you've watched any?
Oh man, I haven't really watched any movies at all. The only time I watch movies is if I'm with somebody else, like if
Yeah,
my
that
mom
wants to go
comes
out.
home, or if I go hang out with Sam or Noah or something. They all like watching movies, but I haven't really watched one recently. I'm trying to think. Give me a minute and I'll think of something if I can
Yeah.
remember.
The
I got
most.
one.
All right, go for it.
Freaking Demon Slayer Mugen Train.
Oh, so you didn't
That
watch
movie was so good.
it.
It,
Is that
it,
is that like an anime movie or is that
yeah. Yeah, it's
okay?
based on the Demon Slayer series.
Gotcha. That's what I was thinking. I was like, is it like based off Demon Slayer? Because that's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
it's a continuation on it. And it is so good.
Bet I'm gonna have to check. I still haven't finished Demon Slayer.
You need to. That's
That's
it's
a
a
good
good
one.
one.
Goblin
Yeah.
Slayer was like, oh man,
Oh,
that's
I,
what I'm into. I like stuff that's like dark. I like
Yeah.
really dark, like gritty, like gnarly stuff. If it's like,
oh yeah.
soft, I really don't care.
That is one of my favorite animes though. It's Goblin
Demon
Slayer.
Slayer.
Dude, it's so good.
It's
Oh
really good.
man, it's so raw. I love it.
Yeah.
I
Well,
can ruin it for you though.
don't.
No,
Rise of
it's
the
not
Shield
really.
Hero.
Just kidding. Go
Rise of
for
the
That's a
it.
good
Shield
one
Hero
too.
was
Dude, that one's
so
pretty good.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh man, I wish there was like more of it because
yeah.
oh dude, it was so good.
Didn't they
Because it
release a second
ended
season?
Uh,
I thought they
Maybe.
did. Of Rise of the Shield Hero. Blah blah blah. Rise of the
I
Shield
wish there
Hero.
was more Goblin Slayer.
I think
yeah,
there's
same.
making more
Um,
Goblin Slayer.
but
But
there's
man, so
a
good.
channel on YouTube that does Goblin Slayer abridged. It is the funniest goddamn series that I've watched in a long time.
My
Because
coworker, go ahead, go ahead.
you know how in the anime Goblin Slayer is all stoic and doesn't say very many words.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, in the abridged one, he is extremely vocal and extremely loud and extremely crass. And it just makes me laugh a whole
He's
lot.
screaming, "Fuck you, goblins!"
Yeah.
Sounds too perfect. I actually have a coworker who he does voice act here. He used to do voice acting. I don't know if he still does,
Oh yeah.
but he did an abridged series on YouTube, or it used to be on YouTube, but it got taken down.
Oh
Oh.
shit.
Yeah.
Well, if you
So-
guys, speaking of voice actors, y'all want to get into anime. What's your opinions on subs versus dubs?
If I like the anime, I can watch it either way.
I prefer dubbed personally.
Yeah, see, I feel like there's a huge stigma around anime that if you're not watching the sub, then you're not watching it how it's supposed to be. But I think that comes from, like, back in the 80s and 90s or whatever, when anime was first starting to come over.
Oh, and dubs were terrible.
Dubs were terrible. They were
Yeah, they were
mostly
awful.
fan made. So
Uh-huh.
it's just like three dudes, three white guys sitting in their bedrooms, talking in a microphone. Like, who would do that? And they try to make it cool accents, and they change the translations up so they don't actually fit, and they just do all this shit, and it was garbage. But now they have like professional writers and professional translators and voice actors going over all these things, making all the metaphors fit, all the idioms fit, so that the dubs are actually really fucking good now.
Well,
Yeah,
so
like,
here's my opinion on it. Is if I'm doing something else.
Mhm.
So if I'm playing games and I want to watch an anime at the same time. I'll do dub because I understand English. I don't have to read all the subtitles. If I'm like sitting down to watch an anime, I would rather watch it in subtitle just because if the video is not synced with the audio, so like if the lip movements are a little off,
Yeah.
it bothers me.
Yeah.
Oh, see, I have a problem where I'm a pretty slow reader personally. So I if I get into it and I start watching a subbed anime and I'm really watching and going with the flow and I just forget that I'm a slow reader, I have no problem. But as soon as I remember I'm a slow reader, I just struggle watching it and reading the subtitles at the same time. So it's
Fair
like
enough.
for me, it's hard to watch personally whenever it's subbed. Sometimes,
Fair
like
enough.
one of
especially if
my
there's like really quick subtitles. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I can't read, dude. Give
Like-
me a minute.
one of the things I hate about subbed anime is especially like during fight scenes. During fight scenes is when the best animation comes out. And I want to watch the animation. I want to pay attention to everything that's going on. But then if they're having a conversation important to the plot during the fight scene, which they do a lot,
Yeah.
then I feel like I'm either missing part of the plot or I'm not fully getting all of the fight scene.
It just kills me too, dude.
Fair
I'm like,
enough, yeah.
I can't read. Please slow down. Like you guys are fighting and then stopping, talking like doing 20 lines of dialogue, and I'm just like, oh wait.
Hold up.
Yeah, right. I had to like pause it, read it, then let it play. I mean, I'm not that slow of a reader, so I usually catch it all, but I'm not able to watch while I'm going through the subtitles. So it's more
Yeah.
of a distraction for me than anything whenever it's subbed.
Yeah.
Where I struggle.
I know. I just, again, we're all native English speakers, and the American school system does not really push learning foreign languages that hard. So we only speak the one language, and I just prefer to watch things in languages I understand.
I actually learned that in Japan, most, if not everybody, well, yeah, the vast majority of people learn English and Japanese.
Well, that's pretty much most countries. They all learn English and their native language.
I think it's Mandarin is the most widely spoken language in the world.
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I thought it would be English.
Well, there's much more Asian, like the Asian population of the world is much greater than the English population.
Well, Asia is just huge in general
Yeah.
because Russia is technically part of Asia.
I don't know.
Which
I'm
is
bad
crazy to
at, I'm
me.
bad at geography.
I'm
But
not terrible at it, but I'm not great.
to kind of bring it back, did y'all watch Squid Game?
No.
No, I didn't.
Really?
It looked like one of
Surprised.
those to me that was gonna be like watching the trailer and just kind of like clips of it here and there on TikTok and stuff. I was like, I know what this is about. I don't need to watch it.
I mean, yeah, it's it's a pretty generic. They take a bunch of people and make them fight to the death for some money. That's not a new concept, but they throw in a lot of like information or information, I guess, metaphors about all the contestants are poor people or just people that are in great need of money, and so they kind of play around with that. I think it's pretty interesting. It's a pretty good show. But if you are going to watch it, the dub is horrendous. Do not watch the dub.
I 100%, because I started it, but I 100% am sure that I stopped watching it because I started the dub.
Yeah.
And that is the biggest thing that bothers me.
It is
like,
not good.
In anime, it's one thing because, I mean, it's kind of vague that their mouths are moving, right? I mean,
their mouths just go open
Yeah,
and
they just
close.
flap.
There's no lip movement. That's why it doesn't bother me.
yeah, and so it doesn't bother me as much in anime. That's why I can watch dubbed animes. But in fucking real life, like live action stuff,
hmm
You see their
If-
lips
if-
flapping,
if-
and you're just like, this doesn't match at all. What the hell?
if them lip flaps don't match up, I'm like, there is problems here.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
This
there,
is a problem.
it does the thing, you know, the classic meme where there's a lot of lines where they'll stop moving their mouths before the line is finished because it's
Yep,
longer in
yep.
English, or they'll keep going after the line in English is finished. It's just not good. The dub's not good, but the sub is really
Also,
good. You should watch it.
I just love how complicated English is for what it is. Like, it doesn't have to be this complicated. And I actually heard that they're supposed to be like, I think the UK or something is like creating a new standard for English, and they're like changing a bunch of stuff about it.
Getting rid of a
So it's
lot
gonna
of
be
the
like,
So it's going to be
exceptions.
even more complicated.
no. They're actually gonna make it more simplified. So like certain words that can be used, or the spellings of certain words mainly, I think, because like OUGH words make absolutely zero sense.
Yeah.
Like through, thought, rough,
Yeah,
Thorough.
tough,
Through
like
The
yeah,
best-
like,
Thorough.
like if you're trying to say through and then tough, like it's tough to go through there. You'd be like, it's tough to go through there. It makes absolutely zero sense. So they're gonna be like changing the way things are spelled.
Yeah, I don't. I
think.
always am curious how English got so complicated. Like, because there's so many exceptions to the rules. Because they go A after E, except if there's an I or a Y or sometimes a U, or if it's just this one specific word. And there's like just so many weird little words that they just kind of adopted
Before
into
E,
it.
except after C.
I never remembered that and don't even know what y'all are talking about.
It's some kindergarten bullshit. All I know is I speak
It's
the English
phonics.
good. I learned to read with phonics.
Hooked on phonics, bro. I don't think I ever actually watched or heard any of that.
I think that was before our
promise you
time
did. No, it
Probably.
wasn't. It was not.
No.
because I didn't
I
watch any of
remember-
it. I knew my
I remember
uncles did.
phonics in fucking like kindergarten. I think they phased it
Ebonics
out.
or phonics?
Phonics.
Phonics.
Okay, I was gonna say because ebonics was something different, wasn't it?
Talking about eugenics.
No, we're not talking about
Oh,
no.
dang it!
You got excited.
that. Got a little too excited about
Let my inner Texan come
No,
out.
but-
Sorry.
Oh, no. No, but it's a show that I absolutely suffered through the dub of was fuck. It's a show called The 3%. And
Never
it's
seen it.
kind of the same thing. A bunch of people go into a competition to move on to like a better life. Like the 3% of people live in wealth and this and that and the other, and then the 97% live in squalor. But it's originally
really hits home.
right. It's originally done in Brazilian,
Okay.
and I did go back and watch it subtitled, and it makes it much more enjoyable because Brazilian is a very angry language.
Oh, it's a passionate language, all right.
It's an aggressive language. It's kind of like German.
Yeah.
I see. I worked with a dude who's Brazilian, and you know what? That kind of fits the bill, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense now. I always was wondering why he was so pissed off all the time. That's just how
That's just his language.
that's how he talks, dude.
I don't know. I feel like
Cracks me up.
English can also, to a lot of people, seems like a very angry language. Only because there's a lot of hard consonants and vowels. Vowels?
So,
Hard
from what I
consonants.
understand, is like most people who speak other languages other than English or just don't speak English at all, they say English sounds very square.
Yeah, I could see
That-
that.
Like every other
I-
language is kind of flowy and like it all kind of rolls into each other, whereas English is like da 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 da,
Yeah.
and you're just like okay.
It's very easy
Ooh.
to differentiate the words.
Yeah.
I don't know. I always wish and I don't know why I'm saying this in a past tense because I still definitely could learn another language. That just seems like a lot of work, and I'm a lazy American. People should learn English.
Yeah, same dude.
Yep.
That is I always see, like stories on social media about Americans traveling in the world, and they're always like so entitled because they're American. I'm just like,
Yeah,
I would be ashamed if
yeah.
everywhere I
Most
go,
Americans.
I'd be like, I'm sorry, I'm a stupid American. I can't understand your language. Please help me. I'm sorry.
Well, most Americans who make enough money to travel, not all, I mean, well, I'd say the most. Most people are nice, but you know, out of all the people that can travel, there are a lot that they make so much money. They make enough money to travel, so they're like super entitled.
Yeah, I guess that
They
makes
expect
sense.
to be treated a certain way, and you're like,
Yeah.
bro, like that ain't how it works in this country. Like,
Yeah.
oh, what are you doing? Chill. They don't
That-
care who you are.
That ain't it, bud.
Like, if you want to get treated like super nice and like waited on really well, go to Japan because they're, that's just how their culture is. They're super
Hospitable.
hospitable. Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And all those, entitled white people are the same ones that go into a McDonald's and complain that their fries weren't cooked in the last 10 minutes.
They throw their shake at a minor.
Yeah, and some people.
Uh huh.
Now I'm just picturing some dude in a hard hat with a flashlight on it and a pickaxe is just walking into McDonald's and somebody just hucks a shake at him.
It's like, whoa, don't assault the miner. He's already got black lung or whatever from the coal.
Oh man, I got the black lung.
Oh my god. All right.
I know you were talking about a kid, but that was the first image that popped into
Oh
my
yeah,
mind,
I
and
know.
I enjoy it way more.
Totally got it. Crack me up, dude.
Right. Well, to kind of, I think we got pretty off topic to wrap around back to movies.
Oh yeah, we were talking about
We were talking
movies.
about movies. What are y'all's opinions on video game movies?
Most of them are trash. If I'm honest, I mean, most of them are just garbage.
Historically, they have been bad.
See, I would have to agree with you, but I wanted to bring this up because I was recently watching the World of Warcraft movie, which I know nothing about the lore of World of Warcraft, which is probably the reason I didn't mind it. But I didn't think it was terrible. I thought it was a pretty decent movie. And then I started thinking about just like all the other video game movies and shows, and I think that a lot of them are bad or at least received poorly because they try to retell the same story and they either just, change things that don't make sense or they take out a huge part of the game, which is the interactivity of it, and so it just makes it a worse story.
Yeah. Because, like, well, I mean, it's also, I feel like, really hard to make a video game movie,
Oh, yeah.
in a sense, because most of the time, people already have, like, their own, they've played the games, so they have their own story.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever you try to make a movie of it, if you haven't played the game, which most directors aren't gamers, they're not going to really understand that well.
Yeah. Well, and even like, when you play a game and you are the protagonist, there's a lot that you fill in around the protagonist, like a lot of your
Mhm.
own morals and stuff. And so then when you're turning it into a movie and you have to set hard principles and hard values for these characters, a lot of people just don't connect with it anymore. And then they go, well, now he is absolutely not what I am, so I hate you and I hate your movie.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the new Halo movie, or not movie, show coming out.
Yeah.
And I am, like, kind of hesitant because they do have Master Chief in it, and like Master Chief is I feel like a very hard character to play because I mean you basically have to be a war machine,
Yeah.
and
But that you really can't, like. It's also that hard.
it removes a ton of creative freedom from the actors too because they can't like give it their own personality. They have to be this already predetermined, pre-existing character. So you can't like you can't put your own little nice twist on it like the Joker and stuff like that. That's had so many movies and stuff
So
made
many
with
iterations of him.
right. There's so many different iterations of like comic books and superhero stuff. I mean, you can kind of be whatever you want, really.
The hardest thing with Master Chief too is to be true to Master Chief, you can't give him many voice lines
No,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
because
so he doesn't make
famously
a
Master Chief is a man of few words.
yeah.
I
Mhm.
think in Halo fucking 1, he probably said maybe 24 words across the whole game.
Yeah. And that's why they give him
And-
Cortana so she can do
and-
all the
and-
talking.
And half of those words are Cortana.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, even like so because that, Master Chief doesn't say a lot, which makes him a bad protagonist for movies. It makes him a
Yeah.
great protagonist for video games because you are Master Chief. You don't need him to
Mhm.
say anything because you're thinking his thoughts. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Yeah.
But like one of the things I always think about when it comes to video game movies is that they need to stop trying to retell the stories and they just need to
Yep.
make new stories in the universe of the video game.
Mhm.
Like the Last of Us show is supposed to be coming out I think next year? Something like that. But a lot of my friends who love the game are very excited for that movie. And I'm like, y'all are gonna hate it. You're gonna hate this movie because they're gonna do something with Ellie or Joel, and it's not gonna be exactly one for one as it is in the video game, and you're gonna hate it. And they're like, no, it'll be great.
Well, a lot of times, like, with me, I like things that most people don't in video games. So, like, whenever Halo ODST came out, like, I was all about it before it even came out because you were going to play as an ODST guy. So you weren't going to be this just super overpowered Spartan who's just badass. You're going to be a regular ODST Marine. And I thought that was awesome. And most people hated that game. And I was like, dude, it was such a good game. And if they made a show like that where where it's just following a group of like regular people who are in the
UNSC.
what is it? Yeah,
UNSC.
UNSC. That would be super cool, in my opinion. I think that'd be really sick.
Yeah.
That way you don't have to incorporate those big characters that people love so much, which everybody wants to see those big characters until they see them and they're not good, right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I'm so excited, and then you go see it and it's not that great, and you're just like, I'm so disappointed.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, because I really like lore in video games, and anything that gives me more lore, I'm all about it. So, like we were talking about earlier, Star Wars. I like the Star Wars lore more than I like the actual Star Wars movies. So, Knights of the Old Republic takes place like a couple hundred years before any of the movies take place, and it's about some totally unrelated Siths, some totally unrelated, or the Jedi Order has been destroyed at this point, I think, and it's not related to the movies at all. And I fucking love those video games because they just give you so much lore and extra information about the whole world in itself instead of just another let's suck Luke Skywalker's dick for an hour and say he's the best Jedi ever.
The chosen one.
Well, the chosen one,
Yeah.
except for Anakin, who was but isn't the chosen one.
Ooh, also one thing I do like in video games is whenever they like kill important characters, and in shows and movies, I love it whenever they kill important characters because it's like, yeah, that person isn't invincible. They're not, almighty. Like,
Yeah.
and that's what I don't like very much about, like, it's really cool in older movies because that was, that's kind of the thing, and with current movies, you like to have the hero who's awesome and never dies and never gets hurt, and it's kind of like the new Resident Evil game, which thankfully they made an explanation for it. But the main character, Ethan, whatever his last name is,
Fuck. Just no, that's that's from
He,
Mission
he, like,
Impossible.
he like gets hurt a ton, like in that throughout the video
Yeah,
game.
doesn't he
Like,
get like his
just
hand cut off and like
yeah, he gets his hand cut off. He like pours some magic juice over it. They eventually explain it towards the end, which I appreciate because I was like, how in the world is he so strong?
You were
Yeah.
like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, I'm like,
Well,
this makes no sense.
like
But
it just makes their it makes what they do more impressive if you know that they're not just some all-powerful god, you know? Like if there's a
Right.
chance that they can lose or they know that they might lose but they still do it, it just makes it more impressive.
I just love it whenever you have that main character that you're following for a while. They're making really good progress. They're awesome, and then they just die. They just not even in any spectacular way. They just die, and then it's like, oh, and then it picks up on somebody else who is like
Mhm.
close to them or part of their like team or what have you, or it's the villain. It goes off and picks up on the villain and it carries on with that story. I would love that because it's like a whole different perspective. It's just it's not that the normal copy
Yeah,
paste
the
that they
normal
just keep
Captain
doing.
America is undefeatable.
That's why movies are so boring to me and why I don't watch them anymore. Is because it's just copy paste of basically everything else with a different script, actors, and plot, and I'm just like
Yeah.
I just don't care anymore.
There are no more original thoughts in the world.
Yeah, it's like, well, everybody wants to make money. That's all. Like
Yeah.
that's it's capitalism. So I understand people wanting to make money, but they want to make money too bad now.
Yeah. Well,
Like nobody wants to do anything original.
something I think would fit right into that ballpark. Have you seen Invincible?
Yeah,
That
actually, and
show
that is awesome. I
is
love
great.
that show.
It's so
It's
good because
so good
they do that thing where in the first episode you're watching, what is it,
Mhm.
the Globe, the League of the Globe or some shit like that. I don't know.
Yeah, the main superhero league
Yeah,
that protects
and
the Earth.
I remember watching that first episode, and it's the whole episode, like the whole 40 minutes of you're just
Dude, it's
following these guys,
insane.
and I'm like, this is lame. This is just another superhero, like Justice League ripoff. And then it
Yeah.
goes hard the other direction in the last 10 minutes, and I'm like, all right, I'm in. I'm sold. I'm watching the rest of this.
As soon as it starts to go down, I'm just like, yep, this is what I'm talking about. Like, this gets me invested. I'm like, "Whoa, I did not see that." I like being surprised. I like being caught off guard. And it's
Yeah.
just like, with most shows and movies, I'm just like, I can expect what's going to happen every single time.
Right. And then it goes on because like then that happens and you're like, oh, maybe he was being brain controlled, blah blah blah. And then it
Yeah.
goes on and it's like, no, he's just a shit human.
Yep. That's just who he is.
Like,
There
yeah,
you go.
some people just kind of suck.
Welcome to this universe, and you're just like, Jesus. And then later on through the series, it just gets worse, and you're
Yeah.
like, oh my god.
Gets bad.
Because you keep
But
waiting
great.
for it to get better, but it
I
just
know.
keeps getting worse, and you're like, oh yeah, yep, I'm in. I'm
You're
in.
like-
I love that.
Oh, surely he won't do that. That's his son. And then he does it. And you're like, what?
Mm-hmm.
That's his
Oh,
son.
yeah. No remorse either.
I
He
know.
just goes to town. You're like, all right, and, but they do. It's kind of interesting though because they do in that show him like kind of having second thoughts.
Yeah,
and
towards
that's
the end of
like kind of turned me off from it a bit that he had second thoughts about everything he was doing because I was like, there's no way someone this deeply indoctrinated into this kind of culture is even gonna think twice about anything he does.
Yeah, but I'm sucker for a good like character development and character
I guess it
growth.
makes sense. I mean, if you think about it, since he has been on Earth for so long and stuff
Yeah.
like that, it
Well,
makes sense
and
for him to, he's experienced so much there and so much of a different culture. But I mean, that's like their thing, though. That's what they do. They go there, infiltrate, and then all that.
destroy the whole world.
Yeah, I'm like, that's just, it just doesn't make sense to me. I'm like, that little portion. But that's like a nitpick. I'm nitpicking really hard.
Yeah, it's a great show, and I highly recommend it to
It's
anyone that
so
hasn't
good.
watched it. Brandon, have you watched it?
I have not.
You
Dude,
really should.
it's so
It's
good.
very
It's
good.
it's such a good it's like a good American anime. It's
Yeah.
really good.
Ooh, on that there. So I'll just ask you all while I'm trying to figure out which one I'm thinking about. But there are any American animes that you guys know that are good? Watch that are good? Because I feel like I have one on the tip of my tongue, but I can't think of what it is.
I don't know if it's an American anime, but I think Afro Samurai maybe.
Mm,
I don't know. I don't know what I see. It's hard for me because I don't know because a lot of the anime I watch isn't American as far as I'm aware.
yeah.
Um,
I think
I mean,
Super Crooks. I think that's what I'm thinking of. Have you ever seen Super Crooks?
mm-mm.
Probably
No, I haven't
pissing
seen that
someone
one.
off if I'm saying this is an American anime and it's not. But it's about
That's what I'm at. I'm like, I don't know.
it kind
I
of
think the
does.
only one I can think of is like Ruby.
Yeah, that one's not great, but it's not bad. I enjoyed it.
I mean, probably the best American anime is Dragon Ball Z's American, right?
I don't think it is.
No.
Yeah, I don't think it is. No,
I mean, there's
but
not a lot of them. I mean,
there's
as far as
I'm
I'm
sure there's a
aware,
bunch. Yeah.
I'm sure there is. As far as I'm aware, though, I
Just
mean,
they're more popular. Like, I don't know how to explain. Like, watching anime is
not very
more
popular in America.
Yeah, it's more socially acceptable in Asian countries.
Well, literally anywhere other than America,
Yeah,
honestly.
there's like a stigma in America that cartoons are for kids,
Yeah.
and so that kind of takes away from it. But what was I saying? Oh yeah, Super Crooks, which I still haven't figured out if it's American or not, but it kind of does the same thing as like Invincible does, where you start out with this person whose lifelong dream is to be a superhero, and then some shit goes down and he turns into a supervillain. And it's a really good fucking show, and you should watch it if you haven't seen it. There's some
Haven't
titties in
seen
it,
it.
I think. It's great.
Oh, nice.
Hell yeah, dude! I love cartoon
Yeah,
titties.
cartoon titties. Oh, number one American anime, Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Oh yeah,
See, there's ones I've seen and just don't think about because they're so mainstream. It's just kind
Yeah,
of
but that show is
like not
so
even in my
good.
brain.
I
It
love
was.
that show.
It's really damn good.
If only the movie hadn't
Surprisingly
existed.
good.
Are they still coming out with the show?
that's another one of them terrible movies that you just can't help but love.
Yeah, because it's so bad. I love that movie, the Avatar: The Last Airbender movie, because there's that one scene where they're in like a prison camp, and all the Earthbenders are doing this huge. There's like 6 of them doing this huge dramatic like
It's such a good
earthbending thing,
scene.
and they all like, "Hurrah!" And then a rock just slowly floats across the screen.
And it's not even like a big rock.
Yeah,
it's
it's
like a
like-
basketball size rock.
Yeah, something you could just pick up and throw faster than what it was doing.
It just kind of gently floats across the
Oh
screen.
man.
It's so good.
That's just one of those movies that's so bad that it's just great to watch. No matter what you think about it. Until you start actually thinking about, how garbage it is compared to the actual show.
I never
the
saw the movie.
The
You should
fact
watch it.
that all of the characters pronounce his name Ong.
Yeah.
Instead of
Even
Aang,
then
like
in the
they do
anime it's
anime.
Aang.
This
No research
super-
was done, and it pisses
this
me off.
Super established fucking title that it was super popular, and they can't even get the courtesy of pronouncing the fucking main protagonist's name right.
That's the kind of stuff that bothers the hell out of me, dude. I'm like, bro, this has been an established series for like so long, and you're over here like, it just makes you look bad because it looks like you didn't like absolutely no research.
Yeah. I mean, you could just watch one episode and know what's going on, Like you could know
Literally
his
the
name.
first episode, you're like, yeah, I know
Oh,
his
it's
name.
Aang. All right.
Yeah,
I
that's what
know
I'm saying. It just
the
makes you
other main
look bad.
characters' names.
Like,
It
are we
makes
just
it
not
so
like
bad.
doing any kind of research on this at all?
Yeah.
Just wing it,
Absolutely
dude.
not.
We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out.
That was that movie. Just fucking wing it. We'll work with it from there. And
I hate movies like that.
they
Oh,
did
it
it
drives me
dirty.
crazy.
That's so many movies, though. It's the sad thing. But there are also some really great movies. To kind of wrap our two topics together, though, about video game movies and American anime. What about like Castlevania, the
Oh, I
Netflix
love
show?
that.
The Netflix
Oh,
show
I
was
love
so good, right?
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
That's one of those that they took the concept of Castlevania and they took all the names and then they just told their own little story. And we're like, let's go.
And
Also,
that's
the
the way
anime
they should be
Castlevania is
done.
really damn good.
Yeah, it is. Well, they've been doing that a lot recently. Because I watched, or what is it, the Dota show just came out with a new episode or a new season, which isn't bad. And then I think Dragon's Dogma has a show, and just like all these, I mean, I want to say obscure, but not really obscure show or video games are just getting shows that are all pretty good. And I think it's because the games themselves don't really like have that big of a pull. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, it's like they're not they're not popular enough for it to cause enough backlash.
Yeah. Well, but even or also like with Castlevania. Castlevania was like is super popular and is, renowned as one of the like game-breaking games of all time with its like floor or like map exploration and all the stuff that they had done in it. But there's really like it's just a platformer when you get down to it. There's story in it, but you can just ignore the story. And then they took that, and it's also based off of just years of vampire lore and all this stuff, and then just made a good show in the world of it without actually just rehashing everything that happened in the games.
Right. And I mean, platforming games to me are like, it's kind of funny how much has been built off of just a platforming game too,
Mm-hmm.
Like that's all it was just a platformer, and then now here it is,
Yeah,
all these years later, and like it has a whole, um, like category dedicated to just it.
because people reference games as Metroidvanias because of
Yep,
Castlevania.
Yeah.
And I love those games too. I want to play more of them.
Mm-hmm. What kind of talking about new games? Are there any new video games coming out you guys are excited for?
I don't know about new ones coming out, but I picked up a new one the other day, and
Ooh, yeah.
so far it's pretty dang cool.
Tell us. So I saw like a trailer for that game. What's it called? Bright Infinite?
Bright Memory
Bright
Infinite.
something like that. I saw a trailer for it and I thought it was a rip-off game. Like I thought it was like someone just ripped a bunch of assets from stuff and mashed it into a game.
Yeah, no, it's not.
So what is this video game about, Brandon? Lighten us.
So I haven't played a whole lot of it. But so you as a character are this special agent. I mean, she's definitely just special agent waifu to me. But no, so you're a special agent and you're part of SRO, which is the supernatural something research
You just added a something
operation. No, it bothers me because the initials of it are SRO, but it should be SSRO. But you get called for like a survey mission, and then turns out there's a black hole that spawned on the Earth, and so you're like researching or like going to research that, and you are making your way through fucking going through this camp of enemies, which is a different like faction of like a different company basically. And
sounds pretty cool.
Yeah. And you are going through this, and then you start to like take out some guys, and you get hit with this electromagnetic pulse. And it's set in the future, so there's like self-driving cars and like exosuit things.
Good stuff.
But then you get transported back in time to like, so it's based in China. I think it's actually a Chinese game.
Oh, cool.
But it's based in like an area of China, and it even tells you it's like parts of this map were based on real life like geography. And so you get transported back to like ancient China with like ancient warriors with swords and shields, and you're fighting them with assault rifles.
That just doesn't seem fair. What do you?
No, the way they did it is actually really good. They're a bit bullet spongy, but if you play it right, you can just fuck them up, and it's really fun so far. So I'm enjoying
it's like
it.
out?
Yeah, it came
Oh.
out November of last year.
Oh,
okay.
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 Bet.
Not bad. What about you, Nicholas? Trying anything new? Looking forward to anything new?
I actually just got this game Necromunda Hired Gun recently, and it's like Doom in the Warhammer universe, and it's sick. But otherwise, not really. I don't really pay attention to new games coming out, except for I can't remember what it's called, but it's like makes fun of Battlefield and like games like that. I can't remember what it's called. It's like Clown something.
I think I know what you're talking about. I think I saw a video of it. It's like kind of like it has that totally accurate battle simulator vibe to it, or the
It reminds
totally
me of
accurate
like
battle royale or whatever.
it's not even a battle royale. It's 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 just like Battlefield, and I can't remember. I think it's Clown Battle or something.
Yeah, Clownfield
But it's that
2041 or something.
yeah, it's hilarious though because it reminds me of like Roblox, but not as Robloxy.
Yeah.
So it's a little more realistic.
Because I think I
So I
saw
mean,
that, and didn't they have like some advertising that was like, this may be a joke game, but it has less bugs than actual Battlefield 2042 does.
yeah, like people were saying it's actually more fun than the new Battlefield game.
Yeah. Yeah, that game
And so
was a disaster, but it's fine. They'll release another one next year, and it'll be just as popular.
there was some new. Here, let me look. I sent Noah some new side scroller type game that was kind of a Metro. It looked like it was going to be like a Souls like. I think it's Dauntless.
This
I
sounds
think.
familiar.
Oh
I
man,
don't know.
it's
All I
maybe
know is there are a bunch of new games coming out in February that I am very excited for, and do not have the money to buy all of them. Because Elden Ring's coming out at the end of the month, which I'm super excited for. Dying Light, I think, just came
oh
out
yeah, Elden Ring's gonna
today.
be cool.
Dying Light 2, which I don't know. Did y'all ever play the first Dying Light?
No,
It's a
was that
really
like
good
the
game. It's like parkour
like
zombies.
yeah parkour
Parkour
fucking
zombies. That's
zombies.
basically the explanation of it. It's a really fun game. Like the parkour is real smooth, the combat's fun, all the like weapon mods and stuff you can get, super great. So I'm excited for the second one. Then there's also the new Horizon game, not Forza Horizon. Horizon
Zero Dawn,
Forbidden
like
West.
Zero Dawn.
No, this is Forbidden West, Brandon.
Well, I know, but like that series.
Well, the
I didn't play
Horizon
that
is
one.
the name of the series.
My
Yeah.
computer at the time was like getting on to its point of like not being strong enough to run most games
Oh,
that I
yeah.
had at the time.
Well, it was
So I'd never played it.
it was a PS exclusive until about a couple months ago, a year ago.
That's probably why I didn't play it then, because I don't have a PlayStation, never have, except
Yeah.
for like PlayStation 2 and 1.
Which I
I
think
think
the
I've
second
watched
one is
you
also
play it, Jamie.
probably because I think it came out while we were still living together.
Yeah.
It was a good game, especially if you like RPGs. And they do Robo Dinos, which is always fun. So I enjoy it, but I'm a sucker for any big open world game, so I'm excited for this new one. But then the biggest one I'm ready for is Total War Warhammer 3. So excited, and y'all better buy it and play it with me. Even though
I
it's
probably will, honestly, because it like I've never played an actual Warhammer game. I've only played Vermintide and Necromunda, but I mean those are both like first person combat. Like
well, I mean the Total War series is its own like RTS branch. So I wouldn't actually say that's a real Warhammer game. I would say it's more of a Total War game.
okay.
Yeah, because Total War, they have it's like Civilization, but the battles are real time, is the best way to explain it. Like you're in an overworld map, and you're controlling all your cities and moving all your armies around, and then when you actually fight another army, you get to place all your units and like fight it out in real time, which I love, but some people don't have a knack for great games like I do, so.
I never played any of the Total War games, so
Yeah,
they always kind of confused me. Like Warhammer games always confused me because they would release so many of them.
yeah,
A
they're
year. It
very
was
in depth.
Yeah.
There's a lot of small mechanics. If you don't understand, you're just not gonna have a good time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's why I can't do games. Like I've been playing BDO again, and
Oh no.
like I just sit there and I'll just fish or gather or just do like random stuff all the time, and it literally making any progression takes forever.
Yeah.
Like I'll sit there and fish like a whole day, and like people will, and I think that's one big problem I have is people are like will play games for so long that they just get to the point of like they're so good at them, but the game is so complicated. Like they've been playing for 5 years,
Mm-hmm.
and if I want to jump back into CS:GO, I don't really want to because like the game has evolved even
Yeah.
so much. It's been the same game for so long, but people play it completely differently now. I mean, not completely differently, but there's so many different nuances to it. Like I don't remember any of the setups and stuff. Like I would just feel like garbage if I went in and tried to play it now.
Yeah.
Metas change so often that you
And
don't
that's
know
one
what's
thing-
good anymore.
Like people who've been playing one game for like a really long time, and then they're like, "Yeah, man, you should play this game with me." And then you get into it and you don't know anything, and like they're not helping you at all, so you're just lost the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hate that.
Well, that's like Rainbow Six Siege. We played a bit of it. Me and you, Brandon, we played quite a bit
Yeah.
of Siege for a little while there when it first came out. And every once in a while I see it on sale for like $10. And I'm like, man, I kind of would like to get back into some Siege, but they've released like 40 new characters and all these different maps and all these different abilities and stuff. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
I don't want to invest that much time.
You said it was already complicated enough when we were playing it.
Yeah, I
Now
just
it's
want to be a
just gonna
dude with
be
a
fucking
sledgehammer.
ridiculous. Yeah.
That's why it's kind of like a lot of people are talking about the death of the casual gamer.
Yeah.
Like it's hard. It's really hard to be a casual gamer nowadays
really
because of
is.
how complicated and difficult to play video games are getting.
Yeah. Well, because there's a lot of things that like you have to just know from experience in video games to fully comprehend. But then there's
Mhm.
also at the beginning of every single video game, and I only have this problem because I play, 100 hours of video games a week, where they do step-by-step tutorials on press W to walk, press A to go
Oh,
left,
I
press D
hate
to
that.
go
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
And I hate it with every fiber
And
of
there's
my
no
being.
way to skip it.
There's no way to skip it. And I'm just like, but then I go, okay, but there might be some people who've never played a video game before who might actually need this. So
But
I'll just
the worst
fast through this real fast.
I feel like the worst offender of that is Mario Party.
Mm.
Oh my god, Mario Party drives me up the wall, dude, with goddamn tips with Toad, dude. You get
Yeah.
Toad's tip every single time you play. I'm like, dude, I've played this game for like 100 hours. Can we
Right.
please remove goddamn Toad's tip from the fucking game?
Well, like
And
it
it's
even
so annoying to
Stop
sit through. It
receiving
takes
Toad's
forever.
Toad.
it even gives you the option of have you played the game before? And it
No,
defaults
you
to yes.
awful.
It defaults to yes,
No,
and I'm just like,
then,
no.
even if you pick no, it's still you open up the map. Well, time for tips with Todd. I'm just like, Jesus Christ, end me. Oh my god, because you have to sit there and spam A for like 5 minutes just to get through all of the bullshit you already know. I'm like, dude,
Yeah.
please spare me.
Well, also, Mario Party is one of those games that I only play when I'm drunk with other people. Like
Yep.
that's a party game, Maybe that's why they named it that.
Problem though.
But
That's the problem because I'll get drunk and easily angered, and
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh my god.
well, no, I'm saying like before every single mini game, there's like a splash screen of this is how you play the game, and it even lets you
practice session.
Yeah, it lets you practice
Oh,
the
dude.
game, and until everybody readies up, you don't go through. So we're
Mhm.
all like, 3 handles in, blacked out of our minds, and we're just playing the practice round over and over again until one of us finally goes, "Fucking ready up, you pieces of shit!" And then we all ready up and play the actual mini game.
Because you've already played 47
Yeah,
times.
yeah.
If you're gonna put tutorials in games, please add a setting that you can just turn them off. Turn off tutorials, turn off hints, turn off everything.
Mm-hmm.
Or after you hit a certain amount of hours in the game, turn it off. I don't want
Yeah.
to see it anymore. I know how to do everything. Like, please.
Or just give me a splash screen the first time I launch into a game, that asked me, "Have you played a game before?"
Yes, honestly,
that-
And it will hit
please.
yes, and then it will take out all fucking beginner mode
Yeah,
shit,
because it's
where it's like
still
W to walk, fucking E to
E to
interact with
interact, yeah.
stuff.
Because that shit still kind of
Mhm.
boggles my mind how there are people who don't know how video games work, even though it's probably a majority of the population. I'm just so deep in it that it doesn't make sense to me that you get into a game and there's just things you know, like WAS to walk around, shift to sprint, space to jump, F
Also-
or E to interact, R to reload, like tab for inventory. There's just these things that you know.
Developers, any developer ever listens to the show,
Doubt.
default inventory
Is tab.
to tab,
I know.
not I.
Yes,
Yeah, that
totally
doesn't make
agree.
sense.
Any like survival game, any game with an inventory, the first thing I do in that game is
Press tab.
before ever even launching into the game, I'm in the main menu, I go to options and I remap inventory to tab before I ever start the game.
Right? Because it just makes so much more sense than having
Because
to
they
reach
always
across the
defaulted
keyboard.
to I, and it's fucking ignorant.
Mhm.
I for ignorant, not I for inventory.
For ignorant.
Man, kind of like with all this stuff I've been playing recently, I've been playing Deathloop, which I don't know if you guys know what that is, but it's a really good game and you should play it. It's like a roguelite first-person shooter, but with like super it feels like what's the Dishonored meets Borderland meets roguelite. It's a great game, but it has like 3 hours of tutorials.
Jesus.
It's because you load in and there's a whole bunch of tutorials you have to skip through, and then you play through the first loop, and then there's more tutorials explaining the loop, and then you get a new item, and then it's more tutorials explaining the new items, and then
God.
it like skips over to when you die the first time, and then there's more tutorials explaining how dying affects the loop, and it just really beats you over the head with all these tutorials. And it's a great game other than that, if you can just mash through all the tutorials real quick.
And for me, that's what tutorials always end up being. It's just like, let's
Just
get through
mash.
this. I already,
Yeah.
like, I'll figure it out. Like, tutorials don't help me. Because as soon as the tutorial's done, I've forgotten everything they just told me, except for, like, specific certain things.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, I'm completely clueless. I'm like, whatever, I'll figure it out.
Yeah,
And so
just-
that's how I like to play games. I
Just mash buttons.
don't like to have my hand held.
Yeah. But like if you have some sort of wacky mechanic that no other game has, like yeah, give me a brief like, hey, this is what this does, and I'll be
Yeah.
like, okay, thanks.
Yeah.
And then go on from there.
But like any first person shooter is like, this is the key to throw a grenade, and why is it always G?
Yeah. Yeah.
Anything that is beyond R, F, and V on my keyboard, like to the right, beyond
Out
that,
of reach. Out
don't
of
even
reach.
care about it. It is not getting used. Like I have 12 buttons, and then there's plenty of buttons around. I'm like, and most people have mice now. That I say
Yeah, they
most
have
people.
thumb buttons and
Yeah,
just
like my
normal
mouse
keypads.
my mouse has like 6 or 7 different, or I think 6 buttons on it that I can program. I don't use all of them all the time, but like for like specific games that I really care about, yeah, I do.
Yeah.
You know, and so
But, that's one of those things that they can't default the grenade button to a mouse thumb button because
I understand that, but
not
why
everyone has
G?
that.
Why G? Why not let me select the
G
grenade?
for grenade, and
I'm
I
totally-
for inventory, and J for journal.
It's so annoying though. I mean, I do appreciate like MMOs and stuff that will use like the letters to signify something, like J for journal, C for
C
P
for
for your
crouch.
character menu or something. Like this, Wildlands uses C for prone, and I'm like, why?
Yeah, everyone knows
Why
it's
is
Z
that-
for
why-
prone,
That is
right?
that is
Why-
control.
Why can't I just hold down control and go prone like
Yeah.
any other first person shooter or
Why
shooter
is it
game
a
ever?
separate button to go prone versus crouch?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's some decisions that are made, and I understand it's probably because that's how the engine works, but it doesn't help it not piss me off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and there are also just a lot of games that you can tell they're designed for controllers. Like I'm
Yeah,
playing like
dude.
Deathloop
Oh.
again. It is designed for a controller, honestly, but you know you can make it work on a mouse and keyboard. But there's just something about them not like just taking another hour or so to set up key mapping to make more sense for a keyboard.
Yeah, that's probably my own thing, but I hate having to change my like settings in games to
Mhm.
fit the way I play and stuff. I know it's like a super like stupid thing to be like kind of complaining about, but it just kind of bothers me. I'm like, if I don't know. That's kind of dumb. That's kind of dumb on my part to even like be
Yeah, to
bothered
complain
by
about
that.
it.
But yeah, but it's just one of those things that like irks me. I'm like, damn it, I don't want to have to go in and change stuff just because you mapped it weird.
Yeah. I don't know. It's definitely gotten a lot better than it used to be because, you know, like old games, like original PC games, they had no idea how to do key mapping. Like it was always the arrow keys for movement, which just makes no freaking sense because there's no
Oh yeah,
buttons
that's
around
awful.
the arrow keys to
Yeah.
put anything else to. So they're like, "Oh, arrow keys with one hand and then your other hand is also on the keyboard moving all the cameras
So,
around."
but that was at a time really kind of before like looking around in a video game was so important.
Yeah, that's true, yeah. I
Like,
remember, kind of sidebar, but I remember playing the original Lego Star Wars trilogy with my sister. And we had a wired controller we would plug into the USB port, and then I would use arrow keys and like JK and L to play the game. Good memories, good times.
No, I never really played any older PC games because I didn't have internet till I was like 16, so
Yeah.
most of what mine was console games. But as soon as I built my first computer, at 16 or 17, oh man, there was no turning back. Like playing on a controller for me is just infinitely worse than playing on mouse and keyboard. And like unless it's like a racing game. That's usually my only exception, but literally any other game, I do not. It's just terrible.
See,
yeah.
there are specific games that I like controllers better. So like Dark Souls games, I play Dark Souls games on controllers.
That's fair too. Yeah, like
Yeah.
there are specific games that I do enjoy it more, but it's so specific.
I feel like any game that's third person, I play on controller. Just because something about having the over the shoulder camera just makes it difficult for mouse and keyboard. I don't know why. It's probably just a personal thing.
I mean, yeah. Oh, also, I don't know. Nick said internet, and it made me think about it. I heard some interesting news on the radio today.
Who listens to the radio?
Me.
Me in my
Seriously?
work truck because it doesn't have fucking Bluetooth audio.
Doesn't it have an aux cord? Have a
It-
cassette player?
No, it's got
Brandon
a
out
CD
there
player.
jamming to some
It-
cassettes,
Well,
dude.
you-
I
no,
hate
no.
a cassette player.
Do y'all never have
got an aux
those
cord, but-
those cassette players that were an aux cord, so you would throw the
Yeah,
cassette
yeah.
in there and plug into your
They have
phone?
Bluetooth ones now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good times. Anyways, you're saying.
Suddenlink now has 5 gig internet
Hmm.
on their fiber network. They now have 5 gigabit internet.
It's fucking awesome. How much is it? Where can I buy
It's
it?
really
I don't know.
I don't
but I
need
just
it
heard
though, dude. Like my
I really
gigabit
don't either.
is plenty. Like
was gonna say,
one-
I don't
need
one
it
gig
either.
is fine. And also like
One-
1 gig, my 1 gig internet's like $90 a month. So that
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
already expensive. So
Yeah. No, but I just heard that and I was like, what the fuck? I mean, like, yeah, for a business, it would make sense. Like, if you have,
Ah,
30
see,
point of sale machines.
but even
like-
I would say for a business, that's not enough. Like they have much bigger packages for businesses.
well, we
It's
run
just
off
a very
of a 10 gig
decadent
network.
civilian, yeah. But I'll buy it. Tell Suddenlink to give them my number. I'll buy it.
I don't know. I just wouldn't see myself using that much.
I don't know, man.
speed.
Sometimes when my 100 gig game doesn't download within 1 hour, I mean, that's just
I mean,
shame.
even with my gig internet, it usually doesn't take that long.
I mean, yeah, same, but
It's funny.
isn't it? It's kind of crazy though, right? Because I remember dial-up internet. Like I remember
Yeah,
the fucking
same.
screeching noise, and then just within
Yes.
20 years, which is not a huge time span, we've gone from dial-up internet to 5 gigabit download speeds. Like it's just
It's pretty crazy.
insane.
The advancement of technology has been crazy in our time, like in our generation
I know.
alone.
Well, and I feel like it's made our generations more adaptable. Like I feel like we pick up on stuff faster. You know what I'm saying? Because I can give any, anywhere between 0 and 30-year-old a new phone, and they'll figure it out within 10 minutes how to get to all the settings, how to use all the little features and whatnot. But then you give anyone above that age just a non-paper phone book, and they're lost. They don't get it.
Yeah, it's
But
like a
then
generational
also-
thing.
Yeah. Then also you hand like a 10-year-old a fucking phone book, and they're like, "How do I do anything
Yeah.
with this?"
I think it's kind of a double-edged sword, right? I think it's made us more adaptable as far as technology goes, but as far as like actual real-world stuff, I think it's made us soft and kind of worthless.
I mean,
Like, I
yeah,
was
but
watching-
if that real world stuff isn't prevalent anymore, then why do we need it?
Well, it's not prevalent until it's necessary, you know? It's one of those things like it's not likely that you'll need to know how to do like most of this stuff, but it's probably best if you do, just in case it hits the fan and you're like, well, I'm gonna die if I don't know how to do any of
Like-
this.
Reading a map.
And it's not like it's not like knowing how to do all of that, but having the capacity to be able to adapt and be able to do that. And I don't think we're as good at that, like going outside and figuring things out without the internet. Because most people our age use Google, and this is a conversation I had with my coworker because he's Gen X, and I was like, "What's with Gen X and not being able to Google things?" Like I always get questions from Gen X people whenever they could have just, and I literally Google it and send them
Yeah.
what I Googled.
Match
and
their
he's like, "It's a
exact
Gen X."
question in there.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, exactly. And it's like, well, it's kind of a trusting certain sources kind of deal. The internet is like you grew up with it, so you know where to go and you know what to look for. And I'm like, yeah, but this literally has a video that shows you. And he's like, right, but most of us don't think like that. We think to turn to the person we think knows the most, who we trust the most with this kind of stuff. Like with cars, for the most part, he used to always hit me up about stuff with cars, and now he Googles it because I tell him. He's like, "How'd you know that?" And I was like, "I literally Googled
I
it."
just Googled it. Well, I mean, I do
He's
the
like,
same
"Oh,
thing
why didn't
though.
I think of that?"
Where like if something's going wrong with my car, I need help with anything, I'll usually just call my dad, just because he usually has some pretty good insight. And then after I hang up on the phone with him, I'll still Google it just to get extra information about it.
That's fair,
Yeah.
but that's not like you not taking that like step, right? Like you called somebody who can possibly help you with diagnosis.
Yeah.
Whereas they'll be like trying to do something, they know what the problem is, and they'll be trying to do something super simple, and then they call you or text you or whatever, and like, hey, I'm trying to do this. How do you like? Do you know how to do it? And I'm like, yeah, sure. 1 sec, and I Google it, find a YouTube video, and send it to them. And they're like, oh, sweet, thanks. I'm like, yeah, I literally Googled that. And they're like, oh,
Man, well, that back to my IT days working at a call center. That was my whole life. Is people would just ask me questions, and I would just mash their question into the search bar of our that had our detailed lists in them, and then just read it back to them, and they were like, "You're a wizard." I'm like,
yeah, dude.
"Not
It's
really.
It's so funny being in IT.
You just have to click. They always go, "Hey, I'm trying to log into this website, but I forgot my password." I'm like, "Oh, did you try clicking forgot password?" And they're like, "No."
Yep. Oh, dude, I have a buddy who used to work with me who's now in like a help desk position, and he's like, dude, there's so many times he's like, I'll just send him an let me Google that for you link, and then just close the ticket. I'm like, Yeah, I mean, because it's like people have an issue where it's like, oh, my laptop turned off on its own. What's the problem? And like, well, how long has it been since you've restarted it? And like, never. It's like, well,
And that's probably
That's probably
you know,
why.
it's not a commercial piece of technology, so you probably should turn it off.
Yeah.
Nothing is just meant to run forever.
Yeah, but we've also grown up with all this technology, so it just makes sense to us. But then these other
Yeah.
people, they just don't they can't comprehend what they need to do just because they've never had to do it, or at least
Right.
never thought it was important enough to learn.
Well, it's kind of like my coworker Brian. He's the Gen X guy. I was telling you about who I was asking this question for why Gen X doesn't Google things or YouTube things. And he was like, well, you kind of taught me to do that. He was like, whenever I used to hit you up a lot for car questions or what have you, me or Esteban, one would tell him, well, you're like, how'd you know that? I'm like, well, we just Googled it and found a YouTube video on it and did it. And so he took that information and now he got his keys stuck in his Hyundai Sonata, and he had to he was like, oh man, I'm gonna see if Nick or Esteban knows what's going on with this. And then he sat there and he's like, you know what, I'm just gonna look it up and see if I can figure it out myself. And he did. He had to take apart his console and like do this weird thing that's like a
Oh Jesus.
Hyundai Kia Korean thing, I guess.
Yeah, take apart the whole car to get one thing out.
But
Yeah, it
there's
was some
also
kind of
that
log. I don't know.
I also have that satisfying like I know a lot about cars. I grew up working on cars. I've worked on so many different fucking cars. Somebody will literally ask me a question and I'm like, yeah, you do this, 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 and this. And they're like, no way it's that simple. I'm like, no, it's that simple. And then so they Google it and they're like, I was like, what did Google say? They were like, exactly what you did. I was like, yeah, motherfucker.
Yeah,
I
but
mean, yeah,
there's
with
also
most
just
things
something.
it is very simple.
Yeah, it usually is, but there's just something very daunting about, like, especially with cars. They're very complex now. They've got all sorts of stupid
Yeah.
sensors that if
Oh,
they go
yeah.
wrong, everything shuts down, and you don't know where all these wires are going or all these moving parts are going. So to just tell someone, like, yeah, just fucking open it up and rip out the spark plug and the ignition coil and then put a new one in, you're good. And they're just like, just staring at you like, what? Like, that makes sense to you, but as a person who doesn't do that, it doesn't make any sense at all. So saying it's simple doesn't really doesn't really work.
Well, that's why I drive an '01 Chevy. Like, I don't want to drive. That's one thing that like people who actually work on cars and do their own maintenance and stuff like that don't
Drive
want
old cars.
that's why we drive old cars and why we don't like the electric thing, because what they're doing is they're goading you into this whole, oh well, it's so much better and reliable than they used to be. And I'm like, no, they're not at all. Like they're new. That's why they're
Yeah.
so reliable.
I mean,
And also, you can't work on any of them yourself without spending a ton of money on this diagnostics equipment. Which I mean, I'm like pass hard on that.
yeah, I give you that one, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's also like, even though they may not be as reliable, most of them are like just leagues safer than old vehicles. Just with
True.
like how they're designed. Like, there's the whole argument where you could drive an old car into a brick wall and it would destroy the wall. And you drive a new car into it and it's completely destroyed. Like, yeah, because it's designed to do that. It's designed to crumple so that the force isn't just shoved onto you. The car absorbs the force and you don't take any damage. So it's like, there's just, there's give and takes. There's always prawns, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
There's
for
always
sure.
big
Like,
shrimps.
I know that risk, right? Like I know the risk I take by driving an older vehicle, but it's just I prefer it, and that's what I want. I know what's what can happen,
Yeah. I
and
mean,
that's something I think a lot of people need to understand as
yeah.
well. It's like, yes, older vehicles aren't as safe, but I mean, if you do like working on them yourself and you want to have like a project car, always go
Yeah.
older car.
Oh, yeah.
Unless you make like a absolute ridiculous amount of money, then do whatever you want. But most
Yeah.
people don't make a ridiculous amount of money.
No, I
Why
had a
most people
buddy.
drive Civics.
Yeah.
I had a buddy who drove it was a 98 Ram 1500. So almost the same exact truck I used to drive. And the same exact truck that I've probably spent hundreds of hours driving around and working on. Well, he had a problem, or his alternator went out, so he replaced it. Cool, all
Mhm.
good. I like you taking initiative to change your own shit.
Yup.
Well, he gets in the next day to work. He's like, I had trouble starting it this morning, this and that, and I can't get it to start now. And so I was like, pop the hood. Pop the hood. And within a minute, I diagnosed and had it fixed. It was something stupidly simple that if he would have just taken his time, he would have seen it. But he was like, what did you do? I was like, man, you had a loose ground. That was it.
Yeah, but
And it's a
you
lot of
know,
times you have electrical issues. It's usually a ground
it's all,
somewhere, or a
ground is the
fuse,
most important
or-
wire.
or having something like shorting out. Like sometimes you can have wires fray off out of the
Yeah.
insulation and stab into other insulation. It's very rare that happens,
Yeah,
but it
short
can
it out.
happen. Yeah. So I mean, electricals. I hate electrical issues.
I'm all about
But it
it.
was just
Pain
really
of my
funny.
existence.
Because it would start, but he would have to hold his foot on the gas in order to keep it running.
Oh, rev it up.
Yeah, and so we I had him just hold it on the gas, and I just tightened the ground lug back down, and then I walked around the truck, I was like, let off. He's like, you sure? I was like, yeah, let off. And so he let off the throttle, and guess what? It stayed idling. He was like, what did you do? I was like, yeah, to lose ground, that was it.
I mean,
it's a lot of it's just being detail oriented, checking everything. You know.
well,
Yeah.
you could say that too, but it's also again trying to go back to if you don't know anything about cars,
Yeah.
you're not going to think of
Yeah.
that. You're not going to be like,
True.
"Oh,
Yeah.
this wire over here is kind of loose and that's fucking everything up." Like
Yeah.
you know it's simple because you've worked on them before and you understand the importance of it. But to just say like, "Oh, this guy didn't get it cuz he doesn't understand it." Like, yeah, you can't know it if you don't know it, you know?
True. It's a
Yeah.
lot of it's experience.
Yeah.
But I mean, you're not
And-
going to get experience unless you do it. You know?
Yeah, that's true. But it also
Like, I wasn't
with-
taught how to do this. I taught myself. Like I taught myself everything I know about cars. So it's not impossible.
which I think I don't know how you did it particularly, but I think that's one of the
YouTube.
Yeah,
YouTube
that's
and
what I was
Google
saying.
is
One of the
literally how I did it.
most
That's what I'm
amazing
saying.
things about the internet is that you could just learn anything at any given time. Like when I was doing computer programming, I learned very little from my actual college courses. Everything I learned was from YouTube videos that I got for free off the internet while I was paying thousands of dollars a semester at a college.
Yep.
And every time
Yep.
I would like the professor, I would be watching my lecturer trying to get my homework done. He'd be like, "Oh, okay, this is just a basic for loop. You all should already know that." And then would go on. I'd be like, "What? A what loop?" And then I would Google for loop explanation, and it would just give me a fucking 40-minute long video explaining every intricate detail about it. And that's
Like,
how I
oh, here you
learned
go.
everything.
You should have just Googled it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, and that's when I realized, why am I paying for this college?
That's kind of me. Like I still want to go to college at some point, but I'm trying to weigh whether or not it's worth it.
I think
right, because I want
it's-
to pick.
I think it's more worth it when you're older. I think it's really
Right.
stupid to expect people to go straight out of high school into college because you don't understand what
That's-
college is.
That's what I said all the way through high school, dude. Everybody else was like, "I'm going to college. I'm going
Yeah.
to college," and here Nick was, I don't want to burn myself out, right out the gate, and also I don't know what I really want to do, so I'm
Mhm.
gonna take some time and like spend some time just out of college in the workforce and figure it out. And sure enough, the vast majority of people who went to college right out of high school either dropped out or just flunked out or what have you,
Yeah,
couldn't
trying
afford
to-
it.
Throwing
Your
some shade.
boy.
What's happening?
Well, I'm not, I'm not trying
No,
to shit on,
I get
I'm
you,
not trying
man.
to
Throwing
shit
all
on
that
anybody,
shade.
but I mean,
No, I
I'm
100%
just saying,
agree.
I called it. All right.
It just like, because with me
But that's the norm,
specifically,
though, right?
yeah, like with me specifically, it was never a discussion of if I'm going to college. It was, all right, what college are you going to? You know, like
What do you want to do, right?
yeah, like all right, you're
Yeah.
going to which college and what are you going to that college for? It was never, well, you don't have to go to college. You can kind of figure out what you want to do and then make up your mind from there, which would have been so much smarter. And I wish
Oh, yeah.
I wish somebody had pushed that thought on me sooner because it would have made my life so much easier.
Yeah, I tried. You know, I mean, I didn't really try talking anybody into not going to college because it's all whatever they want to do. But I
And
did
some
voice my
people,
opinion on it.
yeah, and some people do go like, I mean, uh, my oldest sister went in and then dropped out, but then she went back, and I think just this past year, maybe this year, she's supposed to be getting her degree for, I think, electrical engineering. And then my middle sister went in and made it all the way through medical school and became a nurse, like first try. So it's, there's never a good rule for everybody, but I just wish it was more of a conversation with high schoolers that you don't have to go to college right away.
Yeah.
I think
Well,
it's just the norm shouldn't be college or high school then college, right? Because that's the
Yeah.
norm. Most
Yeah.
people are like, I'm going to go to college right after high school, and I'm like, you don't really have to. There's
Yeah.
nothing making you because you
Right.
can make a living wage not going to college. It's
Yeah.
really like for me. I mean, just having a good work ethic and being able to network. Being able to network is huge. Like if you
Yeah.
can learn to talk to people, like whenever like I was at Starbucks, I would just talk to people. There was a guy who offered me a job as a welder because I had welding experience, and then there was a guy who came in and he worked at IBM, and that's how I have my current job. I'm like, it's just networking. You just talk to people, be friendly, and if that's not your strong suit, then start looking into education or whatever you're good at. Like what is your strong suit?
Yeah, but
Don't
you don't.
necessarily jump straight to college because there are a lot of people who can self-educate.
Yeah, and you don't even have to go to college. Like I'm doing a trade school right now. I'm getting a
Yeah.
certification as an electrician, paying a minor fraction, like 1% of what I was paying for college, and while I'm doing it, I'm making full-time pay. So
Dude, and there's so much. It's such a high demand for trades right now. Like there's a huge demand for people getting into trades,
Trust me, I completely know that.
especially
Because-
people who are good at trades. Like if you're really good with your hands and like you're willing to, give up your body a little bit, depending on what trade you're in. I mean, if you're an
That's hot.
electrician, I mean, you really don't do anything. but-
Okay. Sure.
Sure, it's fired. No, so
No, I'm
like
just kidding.
I'm in the firm stance of should I have gone to college? No, absolutely not. Am I glad I did? Yes,
Yep.
because I wouldn't
It's
be
like-
where I'm at today if I didn't.
Right. It's not like you regret it, but it's like one of those things looking back on it, it's like it probably wasn't the best decision, but I don't regret my time there because
I mean, I
y'all
kinda
experienced a
regret
lot.
it.
You grew a lot as a person.
I,
Jeremy over here. I totally regret that shit. It sucked.
all I'm saying is that definitely the lowest point of my life and the highest, or like the peak of my depression, was during college, and it was mostly because of college. But I also appreciate, like, I did learn, like, I had a couple of classes, they're always the basic blow off classes that you don't do anything in. But then I had some classes that they did push, like, problem solving. Not really, like, you don't need to memorize all this information. You just need to learn how to break down a problem, break it into its parts, and then
Yep.
just work it step by step until you get an answer, which I think
Like working on a
really
car.
helped. Yeah.
Mhm.
But then again, there are parts that I'm like, man, I'm so far in debt and I got no degree out of it, and
Yeah.
I didn't sleep at all because I was just constantly stressed about class and paying bills and rent and tuition and all this stuff, and it was destroying my life. And you would think getting out of it would be an easy decision, but it was not.
Yeah.
Well,
But
because whenever you get out of high school, you don't really have that structure, right? Like whenever you get out of
No.
high school, you're what, 17, 18, 19,
Yeah.
however old you are. You're no older than 20 usually. And
Yeah.
I mean, you're still a kid. I mean, you can't even legally go buy alcohol. Like, why are we allowing kids to accrue massive amounts of debt right out of high school?
yeah.
like that seems like a really poor decision. Like wait until we're like, because I mean, they say a lot of people say it's better to go to college after the age of 23 because they stop looking at your parents'
Mhm.
money. You know, they don't look at that for your
Mhm.
grants and stuff like that. So a lot of people are doing that now, where they're waiting till they're 23 or older because you
That's like
get way
a
better financial aid.
Yeah, that's a big part of it is because since I was still like a codependent on my parents, and my parents are like middle class to high middle class, um, I did not qualify for anything, like
And you have
nothing at all.
what 3 siblings?
Yeah, or two siblings, two sisters,
They're
me and
sending
two
you
others.
and 2 other people to these universities. I mean,
Yeah,
that is not cheap.
and so I did not qualify for jack shit. And so then having to pay all that, there was a point where I was working 2 jobs and going classes full time. Like it
You, you don't have
doesn't
a
make
life.
sense anymore. Yeah, like it made sense, uh, like 30, 40 years ago when college was $300 a semester, and then you
Yeah.
could get all your stuff out. But
It was
now that
$300
it's
a semester, and people were making like almost what we make now.
yeah, but now it's 10,000 a semester, and you can maybe work a part-time job for $7 an hour while you're doing
Yeah.
that. Like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like, and then people who do work full-time job and go to college and
doesn't
they're
work.
successful in both, you have
doesn't.
no personal life.
It
Oh,
Absolutely
absolutely
zero
none,
personal
yeah.
life. You're a like you have no friends, no free time. It's just miserable. Like, I mean, unless that's just what you're about, which I don't think that's hardly anybody. Like, that's a
Yeah.
very minimal amount of people that are just okay with that. And I mean, most people I knew whenever I was playing CS:GO, a lot of them were going to college at the same time. They were playing CS:GO like 8 hours a day. They worked an 8 hour job and they went to college, and they just got like 2 hours of sleep a night. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that can't be healthy.
No, it was
Oh,
not.
not at all.
I mean, because I did that shit. It was terrible. I hated my
Yeah.
life.
I mean, sleep is huge, dude. Getting like 6 to 7 hours of sleep a night is huge for
Mhm.
your like mental state.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
You're in so like you go and sleep 2 hours for a night and tell me you feel like way happier the next day. I mean, you
Yeah.
just don't. That's just it
No, the
doesn't.
next day is miserable.
Yeah, and you're not in your right state of mind. Like it's just such a weird kind of like thing that's just like, oh, you graduated high school, good for you. Now go get fucked.
Yeah.
Man.
And
Also-
don't be ready. Don't be prepared. We're not going to prepare you at all
Yeah.
for the fact that you're about to get fucked.
Also, I do think that one of the reasons I had such a terrible time in college is because high school was so easy.
Yup, that was
high
my
school was
problem.
harder for me.
I never studied for tests.
Mm-mm.
I never took notes. Sometimes I just didn't do homework, and I came out number 8 in the class, not trying at all. It was super
Damn.
easy for me. Not to say that I'm like some genius or some shit, but
Just high school was
yeah,
easy.
it was just high school, and then I got into college where they don't tell you need to study. They don't like force feed you this information. If you don't study, you're just fucked. Like, and it just didn't click with me until I got to the point where my grades were falling, and then I'm stressed because my grades are falling, but I also have to work, so I can't put a lot of time into studying, and so then my grades get worse, and then I can't pay my rent, and then it also snowballs, and I'm giving myself anxiety right now.
This is perfect because that explains my high school. So my dad remarried whenever I was 11, and my stepmom came in and she took over. She basically made it to where I was in high school. Brandon knows about this a little bit.
Yerp.
I mean, it was just I was like a slave. I would get out of school. I would have to go and do my little part-time job, come home, clean my room, do my own laundry, do the dishes, take out the trash, mow and weed eat, and clean the dog pen and mow and weed eat it, and just like I did everything around the house basically. Like I took care of the house while going to school and while working a part-time job and while trying to maintain like hanging out with friends. I mean, Brandon knows. We were in downtown Big Spring hanging out, doing stuff. Like I thought I was fine, and I get a phone call telling me to come home, and I'm grounded for the rest of the summer. And I'm like, "What did I do? You forgot to take out the trash."
Yep.
I'm grounded for 3 months because and I had to come home immediately because I forgot to take out the trash. Like seriously,
Yeah.
that was like that's okay in your mind. That's how high school was my college, and that's why I did not want to go to college.
Yeah.
Is because I got so burnt out from my from my stepmom and my dad allowing that. Because I mean, before her, I would go to school, come home, and ride dirt bikes until the sun went down. That was like how my life went until she came around, and then then it's like it just completely flips around. So
Yeah.
my high
think
school experience was basically my college, and that's why I mainly didn't go to college because I got so fucked whenever I was
think I
younger.
somehow got you out of being grounded that whole summer.
No, I moved out.
Was that summer?
Yeah, remember I moved out. I moved in with my mom. I was like, "Fuck this shit. I am not gonna be fucking grounded for a whole." My mom even said so because it was like fucking summer of junior year, and it was about to be senior year, and I'm like, "Bro, I'm about to be a fucking senior, and this is my summer. This is my
Yeah.
fucking summer."
I'm gonna sit at the house and do nothing.
And I just got like just used basically. That was like basically
Yeah.
what I was just something for her to take her anger out on and be shitty to me. Basically is how I took it. She may not have meant it that way and thought she was being, tough love or something, but
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
felt like I was just getting fucked.
You were.
I think,
That's true.
yeah, and there's definitely, I feel like there's just a bit of a, like an idea that if you're not constantly doing something that society deems important, then you're just not doing anything. You're being wasteful. Whereas,
Just,
like, you should just be
like
allowed
this,
to.
a completely pointless podcast.
Yeah. No. But like
you should be allowed to be pointless.
Yeah, you should be allowed to just not do anything. Like, especially, I'm very, I really don't like going out and doing things with people. But my sister
Same.
sometimes will,
Sometimes.
like invite me out to hang out with her and some of her friends, or just like her go over to her house to eat or something. And there are weeks that I'm just like, I really don't. I just don't. Like, every fiber of my being is telling me, don't leave the house right now.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't want to do this. But I don't feel like I can just say that. Like, I don't feel like, oh, I don't feel like doing this. I have to make up some excuse to do it. Instead of just being like, yeah, no, I just want to stay at home, play video games, enjoy my evening. Instead of,
But you feel like you have to make up an excuse.
yeah, I feel like, oh, I don't feel too great, or oh, I got work tomorrow, so I can't come out tonight. Darn.
Shucks. Yeah, that's how I used to be. Now more so I've found I've become more social, but only with my friends and like certain people. Like usually with family members, it's kind of depends. Like my brother, I'll hang out with all day because my brother's my brother and we're really close like that. But
Yeah.
that's only because we both went through the same like shit, so we're both of the same kind of mindset of like, we just whenever we're hanging out, we just want to have fun.
Yeah.
So it's a little different. But like with some of my relatives, I haven't seen them in so long. Whenever I hang out with them and stuff, I'm just like, oh man, this is just like you're not the same person you used to be. Like people change, which is totally fine, but it's not like they're not like people I want to hang out with. It doesn't make them bad or me bad because I don't want to, but it's one of those awkward things where you kind of have to be like weird making an explanation about it because you don't want to be rude.
Yeah. Like, you feel like if you just tell them, like, yeah, no, I just don't really want to hang out with you, that
You feel like it's
they're-
not acceptable. You're like,
yeah, and they're
Yeah.
gonna take it as an insult. Whereas, like, no, it's not an insult. It's just I just want to be comfortable and happy, and not be forced into some social situation that I'm not gonna enjoy in the slightest.
And
Yeah.
it kind of bugs me too because like a lot of people will put a stigma on that and be like, "Oh, well, you're depressed." It's like, no, I just don't want to go outside right
Yeah.
now.
My
Like I just
social
want to be lazy.
batteries,
Let me be fucking lazy.
my social batteries are drained,
Mhm.
Yeah.
so I don't have the emotional energy to deal with people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's like, especially like coming home after work. I've just put in 8-9 hours of dealing with all these other people and doing all this stuff to make sure everything gets done. I just want to come home and be by myself.
Yep.
I just
Dude,
want to
totally
sit and play
feel
video
that.
games.
Especially being in IT, I like because a lot of my friends didn't really understand. They're like, I'd come home and I'd be chilling, and they're like, "Hey, you want to hang out?" And I'm like, "Well, I just got off work," and they're like, "Well, you don't you don't really do anything at work, do
It's
you?
like,
And I was like,
"Fuck
not
you."
really, not physically, but like mentally, I am drained. And now that Sam has a IT job, he's like, I get it.
Yeah.
I totally get it now. Like I'm mentally drained whenever I come home now. I'm like, yeah, dude, you see, like it's not like fun and games whenever I'm at work. I'm working.
Yeah. It's like
And I've been
just a
working
whole
from
different
home these past
mindset.
couple days, and it still like has kicked my ass. But only because I work. I try to work hard.
I mean, yeah, I feel like most, I'll say most, but probably not most people try to
No,
put in their best, but
not most, dude. None of my coworkers do nearly as much as me for the most
Oh,
part.
see, I feel like I've had good luck with coworkers, but maybe that's just me.
It's also because they're older and just kind of burnt out. You know, they're like, whatever.
Yeah, that's true. There's
Pretty young
definitely an
for my
aspect
job.
of all the older journeymen are just like, whatever, just do this shit. It's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah, whatever. We're just here to collect a paycheck. I'm like, I
Yeah.
feel that.
Go on. You're like, all right. All
Yeah,
right,
I
boys.
mean, it's crazy because the differing like viewpoints we have because two of us went to college and
Failed
I
out.
would
Which you and Jeremy went to college and I didn't.
yeah, I don't know if I would necessarily say failed out.
Yeah, that's true. We didn't fail out.
I know for me, I decided at some point that I was like, yeah, this ain't for me, and then I stayed in way too long.
Well,
Yeah.
you lost motivation, right? At some point, you were
Yeah.
like, whatever. I'm so over it at this point.
Yeah, I was like, this isn't for me. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
And so it put me into a position of, well, now I'm just working, whatever. And then it turned into an opportunity of my lifetime where I'm training to be a builder, a home builder.
Yeah.
And so
College isn't the answer, dude. There are so many different answers, and that's
Yeah.
where I feel like high school really fails people, is because it tells you there's only one answer. Sit down, shut up. Don't think, don't talk to your friends. Don't network. It's like that just totally fails people for the real world.
yeah. But and then Jeremy decided, hey, this isn't for me. I'm gonna put some stock into trade school. And so
After
far
like
he's
4 years.
well, yeah. But now you're enjoying that much
Mhm.
more than you ever minusculely enjoyed college.
Oh yeah, like
Dude,
I
and
actually
it's-
wake up happy and I can actually sleep through the night. it's
and
a very
so much less
drastic difference.
stressful. Like it's
Oh,
so much less
absolutely.
stressful than going to college
It's-
because you're not like paying that much, so it's not that
Yeah.
weight over your shoulders or on your shoulders over your head.
And it's also like while you're in college, you get out of your classes for the day, but you're not done with college. Like there's still homework, there's still
Exactly.
you got to plan all
You
your
don't have to-
schedules out. You have to make sure you can get all that fit in before you go to your job so you can pay your bills for your rent. But then once you get like an actual job, for the most part, once that job is over for the day, you just go home and you're good. Like you don't have to do homework for your job, so you can enjoy your afternoon.
Exactly. Like you don't have to take work home with you, and which is I love. And I think, as long as you don't get a job that does that.
Yeah, my mom was a high school just a teacher for a while up until last year, where she retired from teaching and then went to work at the same place my dad works at. And I remember talking to her. She's like, "Yeah, it's kind of nice that I get to just I don't have to go in
Get
at
off and be
6:30
off."
every day to prep for lesson plans, and I don't have to come home every night and grade homework and put in grades. I can just go to work, and then when work's done, I'm done with work, and it's great." And
Yep.
I'm like, "Yeah, it's really
Yeah.
nice."
It's so nice. Like not having to come home and continue with the just crap is so awesome.
hmm
That's why I feel like I would hate a management position, because that's what I feel like it is. It's just like you come home and you're still at work. I'm just like, yeah.
Partly for me, but I mean, I'm for the
Well, if the
most
money's
part.
worth it, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
it makes it better because whenever you have your like time off, it's so nice because you can use that money.
yeah.
So it's kind of the trade-off, right? Like,
Yeah.
the more bullshit you put up with, the more you should get paid. Whereas college is like the more bullshit you put up with, the more you do pay.
Yeah, the more you pay.
Which
Yeah.
is such a fucked up incentive. Like you're like, okay, this makes no sense.
Man,
Yeah.
I remember so after like my second year, my grades were starting to dip pretty bad. And when you're in the engineering college, here at Tech, they make you take a class, and I don't remember what the class is called, but it's something like preparation for the school year, some, up your ass name that makes it sound important, where they go over like life lessons about, oh, you just need to start a itinerary for your day and plan out your days and make sure you're scheduling everything and take 30 minutes a day to just, meditate or some garbage. And I remember at one point the teacher of that class just straight up told the class, they were like, well, if you guys can't afford to pay the tuition, instead of getting a job, you should just take out more debt so you're not stressed about, having to work a job. Just take out more loans, and then once you get your degree, it'll all work out. And I'm like, no.
Yeah, it
That's-
doesn't make any sense.
No,
I'm just
that's-
making myself like have to make more money in the future. What?
Yeah, that's terrible financial advice. I'm
really
not
is.
gonna do that.
Yeah.
Because does student loan debt build credit?
Yeah,
Nope.
it does.
Oh no, yeah, it does. It
Well,
does.
it's not credit. It's interest.
No, credit though. Does it build credit?
It's on your credit report and all that.
But I think
Okay,
it makes
'cause
it worse, right? I think it makes your credit worse.
Well, I think it
Yeah.
depends. It depends on
mean,
if you pay it off or
if you
not.
pay it off
Because
or
if
not.
you like, the quicker you pay off debt, the better it is for your credit. Well, depending. So
But
credit is super weird because like if you want to build credit, you have to be in debt.
Yeah.
And the more debt you're in, the faster your credit will grow, so long as you can make the payments and
Yeah.
on time. So if you like a lot of people will get a brand new car and they're like, oh well, I missed some payments here and there, but I've caught up now. And I'm like, well, that's not good for your credit. Or they pay it off like super early, and they're like, yeah, I paid it off early. I'm like, yeah, but that didn't help your credit at all. Like
Yeah, but
paying
just-
stuff off early doesn't help your credit. The longer you can, well, like, to a point, you don't want to just be in debt on something for
Ever.
too long. Like a car, generally the cutoff is going to be like 4 years.
Well, I mean, just credit in general is a very weird concept, but also like with student loan especially, the interest rates on student loans are so high that you'll pretty much end up paying like 3 times the amount that you actually took out just because you
Yep.
can't pay it off fast enough to beat the interest. So you're just basically going to pay it for the rest of your life no matter what happens.
Well, since I've never had student debt and never had to have a student loan or anything like that, how does it work? Like whenever you're trying to get a student loan, is it like multiple ways you can go and get it?
Yeah.
Or so you can get different interest rates?
Yeah, so you can just apply for loans on your own. Like I think I did some personal loans here and there to try to get to cover up some difference, but also Tech offered, like they have a whole financial aid department that will just assign you a vendor from like the state debt something, I don't know, or whatever, yeah.
It's like the federal.
Well, but that's
they're
another
federal
one
student loans.
is you can apply for FAFSA. FAFSA.
Yeah,
FAFSA? It's hard to say.
FAFSA.
Yeah,
Yeah,
which
I've
is
heard of
like
that.
federal assistance.
Yeah.
But basically, unless you're like really poor, they're not going to give you anything. Because I never
Well,
qualified.
so
for any of
here's
it.
the thing. FAFSA does a few different things. So they have the ability to do grants,
Mhm.
which are here's this money, you don't have to pay it back, as long as this
Like-
and this.
Yeah, as long as you like graduate
as
within
long as
4
you
years or
finish-
something.
And you have a certain GPA, stuff like that. And then you have
God, that's stressful.
Yeah, it is.
FAFSA also does federal student loans where they're like, hey, we have some of these that are subsidized, which means as long as you're enrolled in school, they don't accrue interest. But then they have unsubsidized that as soon as you get it, it starts accruing interest. And
Yeah, but you don't have to pay it until you graduate.
yeah,
Oh,
but you
that's
don't have
kinda-
to start paying them until you graduate or stop attending school.
So there's like this huge thing where Biden was like, I'm going to cancel student debt, to get in
really wish
office,
he
and he
would.
never did.
I really wish you would.
And then, right, like, I feel like that's like people keep asking for it and keep asking for it. Why don't they ask for zero interest on student loan debt?
I mean,
I feel like that would be way easier of something that they can make happen rather
Yeah.
than
yeah, I feel like that
like
definitely would
zero
be
interest
easier to
would be
get pushed past.
huge.
But that's like, I
Like why
mean,
not?
it
Why not
sounds
zero
like it's
interest
easier,
loans?
but the interest is how all these loan companies make their money. So to the loan companies, zero interest
Yeah.
is the same as no debt whatsoever because they're not making any money. They lended
Mm-hmm.
you 70,000. If you're only paying back 70,000, then they're not making a profit.
What if they set a cap on it though? Like they set a cap of interest at like, because what's the normal like? What's about the average rate of interest for student loans?
3 to 7%.
If for
That's-
a good one,
Yeah.
that's a good rate for most
mine-
college students.
Mine are all between 3 and 7%.
Yeah, but
Okay.
I know some people that are up to like 5%.
Okay. So if they would just cap it at like maybe 2%.
Yeah, cap
I
it
mean,
low.
there's so many people going to college. I mean, even 1.5%.
I mean, it doesn't make
Because I mean,
sense to
student
me.
loan debt is huge. Usually
Oh
you don't
yeah,
have
it's
a small amount of
massive,
student loans.
dude.
So like 2% of the student loan debt is huge. Especially if you have like so many students, I feel like they should
There's-
like set a cap at the interest rate. That
Well,
way,
there's-
and don't make it too high because then they'll all just set it at the max.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's trillions of dollars in
That's what I'm
student loan
saying.
debt in the U.S.
If you would just cap that interest rate at like 1.5%, 2%, I feel like that would help so many people. They'd still make money. I mean, not as much money, but I mean, still, it's gonna be profitable because you don't have to do anything. You just have to give out money, and
Yeah.
then hopefully
I
they pay
mean,
it back. And if they don't pay it back, you have debt collectors and the IRS and stuff like that. So I
That's
mean, it's kind of
also-
foolproof.
That's kind of banking on the idea though that these, debt or these credit corporations that are sending out these loans are fine with only making, 1.5% on interest.
Well,
They're not.
if you
They
make
want to
it
make
not an
as
option,
much as
though.
they possibly can. Well, yeah,
And I
but
get that, but that's where it kind of comes into hand, right? Where these companies get greedy and they start charging too much interest,
Yeah.
or charging as much as they possibly can, right? So if you set a cap on it, then it's like, okay, well, if you want to be in this business, this is what you have to do. And people, I feel like, are still going to be in that business because there's still a market there's such a huge market for it. There's so much money to be made, even at 2% interest rate.
yeah. I mean, that makes sense, yeah, but just with lobbying and how much money they're throwing in to keep that from happening, I don't think it'll ever actually happen. But
Well,
I
if people
just
stop going to college and stop
I
accruing
know.
student loan debt,
That's never
that
gonna
would
happen.
solve. Well, that would totally sway the political opinion or the corporations to lobby for or they would just charge lower interest rate or higher. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, if less people would go to college and stop getting student loan debt, and then say, "Well, we're not going to college because of this," like start a movement on it.
Mhm.
I think that would be huge. But
Yeah.
it's hard to get that many people organized.
Well, and all this is kind of presuming that college is a bad thing, but I think it's for the most part it's a pretty good thing. But I don't think it doesn't
don't-
make sense.
I think college is a good thing too. It's just the system. So
Yeah,
go ahead, Jeremy,
I don't
sorry.
think it makes sense to tell your entire country that, hey, you need to go to college, you need to learn all this information, you need a degree or you can't contribute to the world, and then charge the money on top of it. Like, if this is such a vital part of, the economy, I guess both work, but of the economy of the world, then shouldn't it be free? Like, shouldn't they just be able to go in and learn and get all the information they need and become better people without the stress of having to pay for all of this and then go out in the world and contribute?
Well, I mean, that's what high school is supposed to be for. But I think the public education system is flawed, right? So that would solve that issue if we would just put more money into education instead of our military budget, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, we spend so much more on our military budget than we do our education budget. And if we
Yeah.
just had less stupid people in the world, then we would have less wars.
Fair enough.
Fair
Yeah. Yeah, okay, I can't argue with that one.
I mean, I think the public education system is so archaic in America at this
Oh, it
point.
really is.
Like,
It's so
from
underpaid.
the
Well-
Industrial Revolution, where they created it to make factory workers. That's why we
Yep.
have the bells. That's why it's 8 hours a day. That's why the teachers are boss. That's why it's work. School is basically having a 9 to 5 job at 4 years old.
pay for.
100% what it's training you for.
At 5 years old, you're just all right. Here's your full-time job.
Yep.
It's
Well,
so
I mean,
rigged.
you can think of it that way, but you could also think of it as, it's almost just a daycare for a lot of parents because a lot of
Well,
parents
it's
have to work to pay for their family, so they need to be able to just pawn their kid off for 8 hours a day.
it's both. I
Yeah.
mean, it is for sure what it was designed for, to be a training ground for factory workers, to have conveyor belt
Yeah.
workers or just 9 to 5 workers.
hmm Well, it's also,
So-
did y'all see on the news about like the book burnings going on in Tennessee?
What?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh.
there's some parents. I think the burning happened in Tennessee and a couple of other places. Maybe it was Florida, but they're just banning a bunch of books from schools. Like Harry Potter because it's very satanic and shouldn't be in schools. And then
Oh,
just
so this is a religious thing.
yeah, no, it's always a religious thing, but
Right? Why do you think we have war?
yeah, but I don't know, man. Book burning, it's so dumb. It's so dumb to me. Like these parents are like, these kids shouldn't be able to read To Kill a Mockingbird. It says kill in it. That's bad for them. And then they go, you
Yeah.
should read the Bible. I'm like, have you read the Bible? Because
Ooh, I have a really great question. Are these like mostly conservatives?
I don't want to throw a blanket on it, but yes.
Because isn't it just cancel culture to come full circle?
Full circle, baby. It kind of is, yeah.
It is. It is. It's cancel culture, dude. They don't agree with it, so they're canceling it.
Yeah.
Well, it's just
Honestly.
like Dr. Seuss being fucking canceled. That dude's dead. Fucking these books were released a long time ago, but all of a sudden, oh, these are offensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, fucking.
It's just like the fact that conservatives are the ones that are normally like anti-cancel culture, but here they are canceling culture. It's like, bruh.
There's a
Alright,
lot of
You're
hypocrisy
doing
in the
what
world.
you. Oh, dude. There's people don't think. People don't think about what they're doing
Yeah.
at all. Like,
Well, because
there's
I
this guy.
saw.
Go ahead.
No, you go yours. Because
was a
mine's kind
guy-
of unrelated.
There was a guy who was interviewing these people standing outside of an abortion clinic who had choose adoption signs up and shit. And he went out there and asked them, he's like, oh, how many kids have you adopted? And they were like, none. Every single one of them hadn't adopted a single child. And I'm like, how are you out here like telling these people that this is like a choice whenever you know very good and well that no one in your little circle that's all for this isn't doing it? Like,
Yeah,
that's
whatever,
not
adopt.
something that very rarely happens, is adoption. Like,
Yeah.
people very rarely get adopted.
Well, because I saw like pretty much the same thing. I saw a guy on the streets interviewing a bunch of these parents that were like, protesting books in the school libraries, and he was like, "Oh, I found this one book in the library, and it has this story about a dad whose daughter is coming home from work, and she gets raped and just beaten up by a bunch of evil men, and so the dad cuts her into pieces and just ships her body parts to all of his friends." And he's like, that shouldn't be in the library, right? And the parents are like, yeah, that's terrible. That shouldn't be in the library. What book is that? And he's like, oh, it's actually the Bible, Judges 14 verse 7. And,
Yeah.
and half of the people just go, no, that's not right. That's not the Bible. And I'm like, it is. It's the Bible.
totally is.
The Bible's
Yeah,
kind of fucked up, man.
The Bible's very fucked up if
Bible's
you actually
really
go through
fucked up,
it.
man.
Like,
The story
Oh,
of
man.
Cain and Abel.
Yeah.
he kills his own brother. Like,
Well, even just like Noah and the Ark. They just,
yeah.
all their brothers and sisters, y'all go have babies now. So,
Or even like the very origins, like Adam and Eve. It just basically says we're all a product of incest.
yeah. Well, actually, if you read the Bible, when they escape the garden, it mentions other people in the world.
Oh.
Yeah, so there are actually other people there, which, yeah, I don't know. It's confusing. Religion's hard.
Oh yeah. It's so convoluted and so complicated and so old at this point.
Yeah.
It's so old. Religion, like, because I'm personally of faith, which basically means I don't like church and like that whole thing, but I still believe in like a higher power,
Yeah.
right? Like, I believe that there's more to it. And that's just my personal belief. So it's like, I don't believe in the whole construct of religion. I think it's ridiculous and a scam. Like
Mhm.
there's like because I don't know if there's this in Lubbock, but in Dallas we have mega churches, like
Yeah.
mega churches. Like these things are huge, ridiculously huge, like bigger than like they have schools. They're like church schools, and they have like football fields with a track and like ridiculous amounts of money. Like they're expensive to go to too because they're not public schools.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, how is this not a scam? And how are so many people falling for this?
Yeah, well, that's like I think he's down in Houston. What's his face? Joel
Olstein.
Olstein? Yeah. He's like the
Yeah.
preacher of a mega church down there, and he's, they do the classic religion thing of, oh, we need to help the less fortunate. But then, like, when all the hurricanes were hitting, he just, like, refused to let anybody,
He just
like, stay
Peaced
in the
out on his
church.
fucking private jet.
Yeah, he, like,
Yep.
pieced out,
Yeah.
and then they were like, hey, we need shelter for all these people that are homeless now because of this hurricane. Can they sleep in your giant church that no one's using? And he's like, no, this is the Lord's house. And I'm like, you
Still
haven't read
house.
the Bible. Because
Like, this
Jesus
guy's like-
would let them hoes in, all right?
What's the one dude who's like super just like a really big religious guy who looks like a demon? Like he just straight up looks evil.
I think you might be
Probably
thinking of
fucking
Joel
Joel
Osteen.
Osteen.
Yeah.
Probably.
He's
He
a
like has a
freaking goblin
really
of a human.
yeah, he looks like a demon, dude.
Yeah.
I swear that dude is not religious at all.
Yeah, probably not.
100% he's not.
He's actually Satan. Oh man, to bring it back to video game shows, the Castlevania show, where this is one of my main arguments with religion. Like in every show that there's a religious person in it, they're always the bad guy. So in the
Yep.
first season
Yep.
of Castlevania, that preacher is just a terrible human being. And then the demon comes in and gets into the church, and he's like, you can't come in here. This is God's house. I am God's chosen. He's like, God doesn't even know you, and just fucking kills him. I'm like, hell yeah. Get him.
Well, dude, it goes back to even like the medieval times whenever they had the Crusades. Like these Crusaders would go on these religious missions and travel across really far lands, and anytime they needed food or shelter, they would just take it.
Yeah.
Because it was because they were on a noble mission.
Yeah, since y'all aren't God's people and we are God's people, we can do whatever the heck we want, and you're just gonna deal with it.
Basically.
Oh man, the world is complicated. But on that note, we're way past our time. So we need to wrap it up. Was there anything you guys need to close up? You need to apologize
think
for?
No, I apologize for nothing.
Everything we said is fact, and if you're denying it, that just means you can't accept the truth.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying my opinion's my opinion, okay?
Yeah, and your
Yeah.
opinion's wrong.
It might be, but I'm not apologizing for it, okay?
All right, boys. Well, with that, we're gonna end the episode right now. I hope everybody has a great week, and we will see you guys next week. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.